one of the main reasons why I really stopped producing is because in the last few years, I realized that...
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Japalang Film Podcast. I'm your host, Sepeng. We also have co-host and film director, Jonathan Chu. Our guest today is Jeremy Chua. Jeremy is a Singaporean film producer who has produced a long list of films from not just Southeast Asia, but also from the wider Asian region, including the most recent film from Singaporean director Malaysia Low called Pierce, the Vietnamese Camera d'Or winner Inside the Yellow Cocoon Shell, which was, I think, me and John's favorite film from last year or 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Our favorite film from SGIF. And as well as the Bangladeshi film Rihanna, Some Rain Must Fall, Ying Liang's A Family Tour, which I saw many years ago in Singapore. Is Tomorrow is a Long Time, Nicole's Last Shadow at First Light, and Kwek's Look at Me. And there's many other films that you have produced, but the list is too long to mention. So most recently, Jeremy, you joined SGIF as General Manager. Yeah, and we can talk a bit about that later. So welcome to the pod, Jeremy.
Welcome, Jeremy, to our podcast.
Singapore's most legendary Arthouse producer. How are you?
Most legendary. Most, overdoing perhaps. Like some people...
Yeah, I think to kick off, right, I just want to share a memory from, I think, 2015. And why I want to share this is because I studied at LaSalle, right? And you also studied at LaSalle. And we've already knew each other because you came to LaSalle to teach a few times. I think you hosted the Friday seminar, remember? But yeah, we only really got to know each other at SGFF in 2015 because I was like liaison officer to this French guy called Pierre Rissient. And I think it was at one of the after party restaurants, and the three of us were just seated on some random place in the restaurant, and while Pierre was spamming oysters and we started talking. Yeah, I don't know how clear your memory is of that time.
It's very clear, actually, because I feel like that's when you find kindred spirits. Like that's when you, even if you don't have to agree, because there were some films that he was like not a fan of that I really liked, and vice versa. But the idea that you can talk openly about what moved you or what impacted you, how some people's cinema shapes your perception of today's time and today's use of aesthetics. It's actually very personal, and you get to know someone so well. And I remember that he was very liberal with his point of view, that he was like sharing and generous with his sharing, and we were like little sponges just absorbing.
Yeah, I mean, before you go further, right, I think a lot of people might not know who Pierre is. So can you introduce Pierre to our audience? Like who is this? This guy is a legend in world cinema.
Yeah, I mean, in the Singaporean context, you could say that he was the one who brought Eric Koo to Cannes Film Festival, because I think at heart, the most important is a cinephile, he's a critic, he's a programmer, he's a distributor of films, and he had a very strong focus on films that are not traditionally European or American, and although he was also very involved with those kind of films, but he was one of the first few European programmers to be looking into Asian cinema back when it was not, when world cinema was dominated by the Europeans, you know. And so I think like King Koo in the 60s, all the way until like Lee Chang-dong, he had a whole range of filmmakers. Of course, Eric Koo was one of them. And later on, of course, and I think you could also say like Rajagopal. He was influential because was bringing these...
I think also Ho Xiaoxian, Hong Sang-soo,
Edward Yang.
Yeah.
I didn't really know much about him, but I remember the first time I actually heard about him, right? It's this really random, like Channel News Asia documentary or something. It was this conversation between him and Jun Feng in some shop house, and they are just talking about cinema or something like that. And I was like, who is this guy? And he's just talking about, your first film. I didn't really like it. The second film, it was quite good. And then after that, I realized that he had a big part to play in this documentary about To Hai Leong. called F, right? And I think it was directed and edited by Chu Zichuan, a local filmmaker. And he was very outspoken in the direction of the film. I think I read it somewhere in some article some time back. So I always thought like this guy was very interesting. Plus, he was a huge champion of Lino Broca's filmography as well.
I think he was one of the few people that travel to Asia regularly. I think you could say like Marco Müller, or, like there are some of that generation who are really experts in our region, and you can say that because of their leadership in the European festivals, that more Asian names became prominent, more audiences began to watch these films, and it became not just cult, but really like world cinema consumption, the more mainstream world cinema consumer base. So I think Pierre has that. I know that, for example, Eric totally adores Pierre. Like every time, like there is his most recent film, Spirit World, so it was dedicated to Pierre Rissient actually. So it's a lot of careers were born, you can say. And sometimes in the art world, you need such important names that give you this boost because it's such a noisy field and everyone's trying to look at trends. And it can be very forgotten that sometimes the thinkers or the critics who are really discovering who are the names to look at are like a light through a dark or noisy place, just a directional spotlight. He was for Asian cinema.
Yeah, I think my two most memorable memories with him was because I that year Court won Best Film and I love Court, and I was telling him, right, this film is gonna win, but he didn't like it. Yeah, so we had a lot of back and forth about the films in competition that year. And also the other favorite memory of his was because apparently he's friends with John Ford and Robert Bresson.
Wow, I was talking about John Ford. There's like 101. Wow.
Who's that German guy, Fritz Lang? And he was telling me this story where he was seated at a table with a bunch of them, and apparently Robert Bresson was a bit of a dick. And Bresson was like, I think he pointed to John Ford, he pointed to this guy, that guy, right? He said, you're a real director. And then he pointed to one fella, which to this day I regret forgetting. And then he told his director, you're not a real director. That's my favorite memory. Yeah, I think Tarkovsky was also on that table. So I can't remember who's the guy that he said was not a real director.
I can't remember. I wish I remembered. But it sounds just like him. He has a mind of his own, and he's never judgmental about your point of view, but he's definitely gonna share his point of view. I think because he has known and seen and met so many people and watched so many films that people trust his point of view so much.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and my last favorite memory of his is he kept asking me to watch the films of Ida Lupino.
Okay.
Yeah, which he said is his favorite American director.
Do you have a chance?
I haven't seen it. No, I haven't seen it. I should, but yeah, I will maybe after this recording.
Ida Lupino, the actress,
yeah, she's a filmmaker also. She's a director.
Wow.
Yeah.
Should
check it out. Yeah. So that's Pierre. And yeah, so Jeremy, before we move on, like, do you have any favorite memory you had with Pierre?
Many, because when I was doing my work attachment in Paris, I didn't know a lot of people. So he was someone who introduced me to a very important friend of mine who became, like someone I almost met every day, called Wang Mui, and he's a critic as well, who was living in Paris at that time, studying, and more than studying, I think he was skipping school to go to the Cinematheque to watch films, and it was something that after watching we would discuss. And at some point, I think he's more learned about Southeast Asian films, and because there are a lot of retrospectives, a lot of exhibitions. So I think visiting him at his house, talking about, and he has a lot of stories about filmmakers whom he has met, and realizing that the world of cinema is not just about production of film and competing at festivals and winning prizes, but there's these conversations that filmmakers have with each other, with programmers, with distributors, the film community have each other. And it's so much more about aliveness of cinema that it's not just something you sit in the cinema and watch and you enjoy and you have a reflection, etc. But there's that dialogue about ideology, there's a dialogue about humanity and all its topics. And sometimes, I don't know, those conversations in his living room was quite precious. And I definitely, I mean, it was so too short. Like, he passed shortly after, like a few years after we've met. I think we met, I think it was 14 because it was the first year. And so it became like a void suddenly. Like, there's this wisdom that was sort of no longer there to absorb. Yeah, I don't know. It's very touching sometimes because people can be so kind, like people can be so generous. And I think that's what I realized about what cinema has done for me is that it's not just a practice, it's not just a job, or it's not just something you do. It's actually in a very true sense, it is the way you live your life. And why I also enjoyed those moments is because with Pierre, you have to really watch, you have to really, like, I always show him cuts, of films, like Yellow Bird, he saw a cut of the film before. A lot of films that, like, in the script stage, we'll send him stuff so that he can give you comments. And it's this discussion about questioning you, like asking you very intense questions about why things are the way things are from a point of view. I think that really helps you shape your mind very in a long-term way. Like, you really think about the problem, and you really think about what is the polemic that you are trying to say about the world today. And not a lot of people can actually give you that kind of kick, give you that kind of... So I can't explain, but it's a very deep sense of philosophy that I've gotten from Pierre. And it was SGIF that gave me that chance, So it was that moment that we shared, that when I went back to Paris the year after, I connected with him again. And especially showing Yellow Bird to him before we presented it, to the festival. And it was, to get that kind of insight, to get that kind of, not assessment, but feedback, and he had some really solid feedback. Like, he gave us notes about a few things that I could relay on to Raja. To make us think really about the character's journey, to make us think really about how the subsonic experience was about. And he called Tesson the day after the screening, just to tell him that he has seen the film, he likes it, that Shao should watch it. And I think more than that, I mean, in some ways, very softly, like, he should select it as well. So, he definitely has he has a very generous spirit.
For our audience who might not know, can you roughly introduce who Charles Tesson is, in case they cannot follow what you just said?
So Charles Tesson also is a film critic, and he's also a film professor, and he was part of the Critics Association that runs the Mandela Critic, the Critics Week in Cannes. And for several years, which I cannot remember which precisely, he was the president he was the artistic director of the festival. And he was, I think, responsible for bringing in a lot of new Asian names to the Critics Week. You can see that the year that Yellow Bird was there, David Shu's Diamond Island was also there. And that was the first time that two films set in Southeast Asia, with South Asian origin directors, was also in the festival. So it's, you can see that he made quite a big impact to Southeast Asian directors. When he was of the CNC, the French Film Commission, you can say, the statistics also revealed that majority of the grants had actually gone to Asian directors, like about 40% of all the grants have gone to Asian directors, which you could say led to the rise of directors like Amanda and Nakul and Carlo and, of course, Raja, he was also committee. And so it's also like he sort of gave opportunities to regions that didn't get a lot of opportunity. And at that point of time, 10, 15 years ago, Southeast Asia was not the kind of rising region as today.
Yep.
You can say that Charles Tesson is one of the key figures that really gave opportunities from the French system to our region. So that's something important, at least for my career.
Nice.
Also.
Nice. And with that, right, talking about your career, when did your passion in cinema start? How old were you?
I remember the earliest memory of having verbalized it, because having your mind it's not real until it comes out of you. When I told my parents, I think it was like when I was 13 or around that age, that I want to move to California and study film. And I think they sort of knew from then, like, okay, I had an interest that's very different from my other siblings who are a bit more good at math, good at science, good in humanities, good in quite well-rounded students. And so when I decided to quit JC when I was 17, like, they were not shocked at all. Like, there was no obstruction. They were already sort of thinking like, yeah, like, because LaSalle just came out with a film program 1 year before. So I was second batch of LaSalle film student, like in 2000 and I'm gonna guess 6.
So sorry to cut you off. You can enroll in LaSalle without a JC certificate.
Yeah, I managed to convince in fact, I even managed to skip foundation year because I told them that, like, I had written a script actually, and I said that I really enjoy writing. I want to become a screenwriter. Here's like a short film I've written, and here's a feature film I've written, and please accept me into your school. And then, like, a few weeks later, I got enrolled. And the beauty of LaSalle for me was really life changing because JC is when you really, really study very hard, very fast. You study new topic every week, like, and you have to speed through it, and you have to be an expert on something like really quickly. And you have assignments that you have to sort of like churn out. And think of LaSalle as the total opposite. Like, I had one essay to write, and I had like one whole semester to write it, and I was given the class study chart, like in week 1, what I was studying every week. So I was already able to prepare, and as a JC student, like, I was already writing my essay week 2, week 3, week 4, instead of like week 19, right? Like, I just go and play, but for me, I was like so intense. But I think what was important for me was that in JC, the mindset is really like just do homework, right? But in art making and in filmmaking, it's not homework. You see, it's not an assignment. You don't give your assignment to a feature film. It's more than that. It's like you are giving birth to a child. You have to invest into every aspect of its DNA. And LaSalle taught me that because all of a sudden, I was not writing essays to submit on Monday. I was writing essays to submit in 3-4 months' time. And the idea of time as an instrument of making became very clear. And that shifted my thinking so quickly in LaSalle because when I was reading my essay, and as a JC student, like, you're very proud of your GPA essays, right? Like, you study on right. But when I was looking back on these essays, right, like 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, just telling my friends, hey, I already finished. Why are you so slow? But when I was reading more books, when I was watching more films, and I was very reflecting on my own essays, I realized that this is so childish, like, I just written the first thing that came to mind. That's usually the worst ideas, right? As we know, like, you always write the worst stuff first. And if I didn't have this LaSalle experience, and if I just had this JC experience, the JC experience would just tell me that, hey, the first draft is already like 90% there, 90% of my ideas, you just have to fine tune and tweak everything. But LaSalle already told me, hey, rewrite the whole damn draft. It's not good. Like, not good means not good. Don't lie to yourself that a first draft of anything can be good. And only after a long period of time can you really realize that, because you have lived a certain life, you have talked to more friends about things, you have watched more films that you've never seen before. Like, I mean, when I came to LaSalle, I had no clue who was Inaritu, I had no clue who was, all these names. And I was forced to watch them, forced to watch classics like Beijing Bicycle, Watership Potemkin, like things that I would never watch in my normal life. All of a sudden, looking at your essay about, film theory or something, you're like, hey, I know nothing at all. It's like the revelation that the journey is the education, and that time is the maker of things. That's why I think I went so quickly to working with people like Raja, to people like Diaz, because they are also not classical narrative form directors. Like Ying Liang, like, these are directors who work in a very interesting medium. Raja, when he writes scripts, is not a logical dot connector. He's not a plot plotter. And before working with me, if you ask his collaborators like James Page or Fran, there's no script. There's scribblings on paper. So they are like grateful that I'm there because, hey, Jeremy, there's finally text. I understand what's happening, And I think that's what I also learned from working after LaSalle, what I learned was time. And what I learned working with Lam and Raja and these directors in my early career was that you don't need structure. You need moments of revelation, and dots will come because puzzle pieces you have put in the right places, and not because you have written something that set up and that's something that paid off. It's totally opposite actually to what I learned in school, but what I learned set the foundation for me to really work with these people so that I wasn't dropped into a deep void and lost, don't know how to swim, but I could use these mechanisms to really put structure into my brain. And I think that's why I really enjoy working with Raja, is that he's very fluid and I'm very solid. I'm a very JC trained payoff setup, 7X, blah, 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 but he's very like loosey-goosey. Okay, today I talk to you about scene number 85. Oh, all of a sudden, can I change scene number 2 because I saw something interesting today. I read something in the news. It is totally in my mind, like totally radical, and I really enjoy working with Raja. And working with La, for example, was also insane. Like when I went on set, and I was not that long, I was only on his set for 2 weeks. And there was one moment I remember we were driving to location. And this is a script that he's writing on a daily basis. And we just shot the scene, and it was long hour. We came back. On the way back, he saw something like in the bush, okay, like in the wilderness, like there's not even like there's not like a waterfall, like a tree fallen, for example, and he would say, "Hey, stop." So his car behind us just stopped. We all were quoting, like, wondering what the hell's going on. And when they came back, they said, "Allah just wrote a new scene. We're shooting it tomorrow because he's totally inspired. He's writing it tonight. The actors will get the script tomorrow morning. Art department's already preparing the props today." And me having dinner, I was just like, my mind was just blown, right? I in school we are taught, okay, get a call sheet or like any TV commercial, get a call sheet, get the prep, art department prep, do the recce, get the short lead, but this is here we go. It's like, hey, I have this, I need this for the scene, I need it, in fact I need it tomorrow. And the whole crew who believes in it, who knows that he knows his work, just stop and says that, okay, what do you need? Like, of course, in the Philippines, possible because the crew is bigger, things are cheaper. I mean, the way things work is a bit different, but it totally blew my mind how working in a creative space is like. And so I think I was very lucky. Like I could start off in this manner, and this was even before Love won Silver Bear and before Raja was in Cannes. Like, it was just very naive, innocent film enthusiast who now suddenly wants to be producer and screenwriter. It's these experiences that become the shaper of like, how do I approach things today? Like if a director asks me about things and then when I give my comment, I really think about, okay, all the experiences I have to make a good film, does it have to be black and white? Does it have to be so chronological? Can it take that kind of form where you take a bit of risk? So yeah, I had some really great birthing moments, like early days, early bird. Like
I was just smiling when you were talking about Love because I was on Love's set once, but he was shooting in Singapore, and whatever you just described was my experience as well. But Jeremy, you have to be honest. When you are actually on set, right, it's very frustrating because you don't know what to expect, right? Like it will be a more, I guess, peaceful experience if you have a call sheet and you can prepare, But yeah, man, like I remember he would like wake up at like 3 a.m., play his guitar, write his script, and then we will get the day's call sheet in the morning, right? Like 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. And that's sort of fun film production. It's very stressful.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing, is that because we are the crew, right? We are going to work. We know that structure, we know how to be efficient, we know about productivity and like executing tasks. I think what I learned about these processes is that yes, for crew and for especially specialists, that these things are going to be very helpful to execute, to get what you want. That space for experimentation on set, and I feel like this is hardly planned enough. Maybe also like for you, John, is that if you have a call sheet that's like so, like 10 o'clock shot A, 10:15 shot B, 10:30 shot C, like you very have little time to actually work with the material on the ground. You are really working with your prep phase, like all in prep. And that's important for sure. But I think it's almost like cooking with a recipe whereby if you know that, hey, this is too spicy or not tasteful enough, I need to add something, you need to really throw it on the spot. Like, and a chef dip their finger and will taste the food right, as they're cooking. I think maybe Love is a bit on the very free side, but I think that idea of innovating and improvising with your process is like quite important. And oftentimes directors would tell me they didn't have enough time. It's a frustration because they know that, not because they want more shots or I want more takes, it's never that. It's that I wanted more time to think. I wish I had more time to try something else. I had idea one in take one, it wasn't so good. Idea one in take two. Idea one, take three, mastered. Okay, great, good take, move on. But actually I had a variation that I wish I could done, because if I was editing wrong, I might have had that choice or whatever it was. And the sets whereby there was more time for those, I felt editing process was much more, shall we say, creative also. There was more room to have debate about things. Whereas if you don't have the place to maneuver later on, you are sort of stuck with what you shot, what you return what you shoot.
Yeah.
And that sometimes can be and as we know, writing is very different from seeing, Well, you need a time to edit yourself. I think that's been very useful for me preparing filmmakers also.
Yeah, I actually really agree with, like, even though Love Diaz working style, like what you said, is something that we are not used to. In fact, it's kind of like the antithesis to everything that we have to operate upon. But when you really think about that kind of, like you say, art making, right, where you are just kind of working on intuition, right, there's so much purity in it, and I suppose Laugh's film, probably the budget, you don't have to answer to like a huge studio and everything. But I recall I watched this behind the scenes documentary for my favorite filmmaker, Johnny To. He was working on this feature film called Tree. And it's a crazy action genre film. It's set in a hospital, like a set of hospital. And they actually work like Love Diaz. There's no script. And every day they go there and they just build the script from scratch. It's like cause and effect on the spot. And he was just tormenting the script writer there. And he was just like, this doesn't work. Go back and think. We'll call off the day. Then the crew just go home and then they'll come back again. And the screenwriter is just like scratching his head. And you're like, why is he being so difficult? But there is something in him is just waiting to click, But like I said, there's this purity, this thread of pure narrative about to unfold, right? That just refused to be controlled by, okay, this is draft 1 to be delivered, draft 2 to be delivered, call sheet shot upon shot, But then again, that's a very different environment and stage of career that can enjoy this luxuries. Yeah.
I feel like my biggest takeaway and biggest inspiration from watching Love work is just, you can actually make a film on a very tiny crew and budget. In theory, this can be done, right? Like, you've read interviews of like Hong Sang-soo, like he shoots his films for like 100K or less. But to see firsthand that it can be done, it was very empowering. Yeah. So Jeremy, going back to LaSalle, right? When did you start mapping out your career plans? Like, because I know you, at what point did you decide, okay, I'm going to head to Paris? Because I know that's where you went, right? For a big chunk of the time.
Yeah. I first went to Substation. And Substation, mainly because I wanted to watch a lot of films. I just wanted to watch them without any stress about money. So I began to just volunteer for free. Like, I would work front of house, I would set up, close up at the end, clear the trash. And then, for example, when Substation had art projects, I began to volunteer to do that for free. I did that for about 2 years or 3 years.
While in LaSalle?
Right after LaSalle. Like, while in LaSalle, but also right after, like 2009.
Right.
That was already like actually during my NS days. And then I was working with like BK and Aisha Bubakar. BK was a programmer who I think was kicking off like Experimental Film Forum and also Short Film Awards. And then Aisha was also doing like documentary festivals and also carrying on the Experimental Film Forum and the Short Film Awards. And the two of us were just like watching DVDs the whole day. Like a lot of submissions would come, we just watching them, planning them. Would they go to first take? Would they go into like different programs throughout the year? And a lot of the work I was doing was administrative. So I was helping my, as the child labor, as a free labor, as the intern, was just like doing a lot of data entry, front of house, box office, like making sure things ran. And I really enjoyed it because I got to meet a lot of filmmakers. Like, that was the first time I met Fran and Raja. The first time I watched like Anthony's film also was there. The first time I sat in a jury deliberation during Cocoon Awards was there with Leslie Ho, with Sanko, with like
Which of Anthony's film did you work on?
No, it was more like I was watching his short films. Like
I see. Okay.
Submitted them to SG. I think he had just moved to London at the time, and he was submitting films that he was making already. Film school, yes. And so I was discovering his works there. I was also discovering Rajagopal's works there. It was when I had a chance to work with Wenjie and Warren at the and Benita Cinema. I did the retrospectives for. No, I didn't do it, but I worked on the subtitles for Edward Young and Akira Kurosawa retrospectives. At the time, there was it was film reel, so like the subtitles had to be like it was like PowerPoint. Like I literally had to manually every time the mouth open, I must click. So
I had the experience as well. At the National Museum. Yeah.
Yes,
I did that for King Hu retrospective.
Then bonded by history. It's a
very heart pumping task. Very anxiety inducing. Wow.
yeah. But because I was quite good at it, actually, they invited me several times, and then I became to be a regular at the Cinematheque. I always could sit upstairs, didn't buy ticket. So I was very good at watching stuff for free and just volunteering time in exchange. And going to Paris was because Lowave, which was at the time Nicole came to Singapore with one of our colleagues, Stefan, and I was helping them set up their show in Singapore, which was an exhibition of many, like I think about 200 video artworks compiled into 10 volumes called Human Frames. And it was also a time that I was understanding how research was being done. I was almost like a curator's assistant, like researching on Singaporean visual artists or video artworks that would be possible to be included into the program. And because they were doing this show in Dusseldorf 3 or 4 months later, they asked me whether do I want to come and just, help them out because I already know how the show works. So I said yes. And that's of course another set of like life experience that it's like moving to Europe for, 3 months and helping set up an exhibition in a national museum in Germany was like very inspiring. I think one of the key memories I have was Zunian came, and he came with his like work Earth, and it was he would to be the opening act for the opening night, and he invited Black to come to really perform live with the work. And learning about Zunian's process and his encyclopedic knowledge of music and a lot of details that he's very oriented in, it also helps you understand the making process when you are learning about the exhibition process. I think that helps me a lot, like grow without even knowing as a producer, because then you realize that you don't produce just to produce. Actually, you produce to exhibit. The real moment you are presenting a work is not because you had a production and it's done, but because there's a screen, it's going to a public, and there's a certain settings in which this screening needs to take place in order for the public to receive this message or this film the right way. In Lowave, that's what I learned. Lighting is important. Venue is important. Volume is important. The lumens on the projector is important. I was once setting up a show for Zunian. He said, Jeremy, the lumens is not strong enough. I don't want an 8K lumen. I don't want 10K. I want a 16K. And in my mind, I was like, it looks fine. It's a screen. There's picture. I can see it. Must I go and change I must go and find a sponsor, And yeah, this process just taught me that yes, this is important, because details, there's going to be a dark scene later on, there are moments in which there's extreme close-ups. You cannot see details if it's too dark. And like the typical Singaporean brain on myself is just like, why it works? Why trouble yourself? Then working with artists who are so serious about their craft and the presentation format, I really learned like, this is important. Like people want to have that experience because people are paying good money to come to a show to see get an experience, and the artist is curating the entire experience for you. If they say they want to simply look at lighting, they probably know better than some intern who is just lazy to get another projector, right? So like there's so many things about exhibition I learned that taught me about producing that I never even knew I was learning at that time. And then so after my 3-month internship, I told myself I'm going back to LaSalle to study film again, and that's why I went back to LaSalle for my degree. And then after that, straight away, I went straight back to Paris because I told them that I want to set up every show that you have. I want to help you produce all your other publications or video works that you're producing. It was just more exciting there because you just felt like people cared about quality and people would scold you when the quality is not right. Whereas in Singapore, especially 10, 15 years ago, we're doing our best, we're trying better than this. And that is just a totally different way of thinking. And allow me to understand and appreciate contemporary art a lot more. When I go to a space, I really think about, if someone chose this ambience, someone planned this text, someone created this experience, and now for me to experience it and for me to judge for myself, was it a good or bad experience? Based on what I take away from it, based on what information has been gathered. And somehow, all of this is related to filmmaking. Without me even realizing at that time, all of it was so related to filmmaking. Because when you write a proposal as a producer, when you get a script as a writer-director, when you get to the set and you work with crew as a producer, when you talk to editor, when you talk to distributor, sales agent, every step of the way, you're actually selling an experience. If you know what it is, people will help you get there. If you are just making JC homework, then you're just doing it like a machine manufacturing plant, then you're just doing the work. 1 + 1 = 2. Shot A plus shot B gives me the scene. Then okay, I can also produce, right? But I think that's what changed in me quite early on, is that I realized that whatever I was encountering here, in what I was understanding to be my film school experience, was not adequate, and the Parisian experience was quite crazy. Also writing Yellowbird, a film about being a minority, an isolated, unwanted, lonely figure. In Singapore, how could I ever have that? I mean, the moment only I would call, text, go to a friend's house, play mahjong, karaoke. I have 50 things to do, right? Like, how will I even understand what Siva's character is dealing with, where there's no way out? Like, I was working in a city whereby I'm 6 hours, 7 hours time zone difference. After work, all my family and friends are asleep. I don't speak the language. I can't talk to neighbors. I go to a grocery store and my French is boulangerie supermarket French. That's the most encounters I have, is with my cashier. Staring in a 24 square meter apartment with one window by yourself, especially in winter. If you don't jump off a window or write a script, I don't know what you're going to do. It's like you have all the material you need to understand certain things that, for example, sadness, right? Okay, when my grandparent passed away, I felt sadness for sure. And that was a real feeling. When I fought with family members and I lost, those are sadness. But in a social context, right? What is sadness? Some words, right, like melancholia, isolation, starvation. I totally understood the vernacular of what these vocabulary words mean in dictionary sense. Like, I understand I'm starving means I'm fucking hungry, right? But in Paris, when I'm running out of money, right, and I'm really rationing my own supplies, right, and I'm cooking breakfast to eat for lunch and dinner, like, I understand, I'm starving in winter time where it's so cold and I'm starving. Like, I understand what it means. And when I am lonely, I'm feeling melancholic. It's like an unexplained sadness, a depression that you cannot explain, right? In Singapore, I never encountered this before. I of course write scripts. I'm a lonely character walking down Orchard Road alone. It's very dark and I can't connect to anyone in the world. But when you're actually there experiencing it, it's like not even same. Like it's like English and German. It's like not even the same thing. Like understanding a vernacular is not the same as actually experiencing it yourself. So I think Yellowbird was great because Raja is first and foremost a very tough half boss. Like when he's telling me to write, he's like, "It's not good enough. It's bad." Like I'm like, I love it. It's like my typical GP draft one. I love it, but I was like, no, it's bad. And I think because I was in Paris, I could take it because I understood that he has lived a life way more dense and way more emotionally gravitating than I have, and what he has encountered, being bullied or being ostracized or feeling different, feeling questioning your self-worth as a, someone who felt uncomfortable his whole life. If I wasn't there, I would never empathize with him. I felt.
Right.
Yeah.
So, sorry, just to zoom out a bit, right? Can you place us on your timeline? So, after LaSalle, you went to Paris to do your work with Lowave. At that time, were you already... Sorry?
I went to Lowave first for 3 months because that's the maximum visa. And then I went to LaSalle, and after that, then I went back to Paris. So it was like Paris, Singapore, Paris.
And when you went back to Paris, were you already working with Raja? How did your working relationship with Raja start? Like around which period?
It was during LaSalle. So Fran was my producing teacher in school. And he introduced me to Raja, saying that Raja's writing this new script. And I was a writing student as well. I was minoring in writing. I was majoring in producing. So Fran actually invited me on as a writer, not as a co-producer at all. But at some point of time, like, I was helping Raja write synopsis, director statement, treatment, script. After a while, I was like, the proposal is almost there. Like, of course, Fran had business material, like the producer statement, the budget and everything. But Fran said, hey, Jeremy, you're already working with Raja, tweak all these documents. Why not come on board? I mean, it was also Fran's way of saying that, I'm sorry, I can't afford to pay you the way you want to pay, right? I mean, I totally understood that, and that's not what I was going for as well. But I saw it as an opportunity to take it as not like a job. Like, it was not a task. I didn't have to do it because, like, school homework, I had to do it. I did it because I wanted to. I did it because in my mind, I wanted to be understood as a writer. I wanted to be understood as what my point of view artistically is, what kind of films I watch, what kind of films I would like to make. And so happened, Raja's door knocked, and because I was working at Substation before, I was totally familiar with his body of work. Like, beyond all my classmates who would have never seen these things, I think Fran and I got along on a more human level, like philosophical level. Because we didn't do it for the money. In fact, I don't think we made any money. In fact, we had probably spent more of our time and money on the film than the other way around. But so when I was moving to Paris, I had written the IMDb proposal. Then I moved to Paris and wrote the script. So the proposal was when I was in Singapore, and then the script was when I was in Paris.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like half a producer on that film, essentially.
Yeah, mainly because Fran invited me. He gave me full access to the meetings. He introduced me to people like James Page, Michael Zor, Justin Lowe, Meredith, like people who really work with Fran for a long time because they're good at their job. And Fran knows how to select people who are good at their job. Like to do, as a producer, he's like great. He knows, and they're loyal to him. They know that he's honest and very passionate about film guy. That whenever they ask for things, he would rather sacrifice his salary and give them resources than keep money for himself. I think people who know Fran very well would never question his integrity with crew. Anyone who ever says that, Fran didn't pay me my proper salary, right? This person is just there for a job. They didn't understand that before Fran didn't pay you properly, he himself fork out the money to pay you first because there was no money in the first place. So because I knew this, I mean, I had full access to the financial situation. I never ever questioned or fought with Fran. Like, our collaboration professionally was never about money. It was always about, we love the director, we love just how they work, and we want to do it because it's pride. We are creating art. We are creating film. And that's the joy of working with Fran, is that when he asked me to want to do his film, we never once discussed about money. There was no contract, there was no, and it's a unspeakable agreement. Like, if he asked me for something and if I said yes, means that Fran don't have to pay me. I believe in what you do. I want to be part of that journey. I'm there for that. I'm there for it. So I feel like I have that. And I think that's why filmmakers trust me also. If they do, like, of those that don't, but those that do trust me. approach to things. It's not about business. Yes, you need to run a business, but it's really about creation process, and are we allowing directors to invent, create the way that they want to create, so that we're not mass manufacturing in Singapore, so that we're not mass manufacturing in our region when we are talking about a movement in Southeast Asia or Asian new wave of Asian cinema. And it requires producers who think about these things more than just, okay, now I have to finance, okay, now I got to produce, okay, now I got to post-production, okay, now I got to deliver. It's really the space, and no two directors work the same way. So in that sense, it's back to square one. When people ask me, how you work on 20 films, you must be expert. I'm like, every time I'm back to director, it's back to square one. Because even the same director doesn't work the same way their next film. They're trying to grow, they're trying to change. I think we've deviated quite far.
No, it is great.
No, I think it's great because according to your IMDb page, Yellowbird came out in 2016, but in 2015, Brotherhood came out.
Diaz.
So
Yes.
yeah, Pepe's film.
Yes.
So you started working with Pepe first before Raja.
I started working with Pepe when I was in Paris, and he was there for Above the Clouds, working on sound and Foley and color because he had gotten CNC. And I can't remember how we introduced, but we hung out almost every day. Like after work, after both my work, as you know, I didn't have any friends at all. Like, to see a English-speaking Southeast Asian person was like, it's like, I don't know, it's like Disneyland and everything in one. So we would cook at his place. He would talk about his process, talk about how he's going. He would invite me to see some clips. We'll go cycling. We will go to exhibitions. We go to the Cinematheque when he's free. And so we became friends. And of course, Bianca, his producer, was someone Bianca, who produced the film, was someone I met years before when we were doing High Set Buying together, I think 2012, 2013.
So for our audience who might not know, can you briefly introduce who Bianca is and who Pepe is?
So Bianca Balbuena is a Filipino film producer, very new wave. 10 years ago, like she was a young producer who was working at Arthouse almost full time. She has a company Epic Media. They are responsible for a lot of the big productions now, both in the commercial, international co-production, but also in the local directors. And they work with directors who have premiered at Toronto, with Antoinette Jadaon, with Diaz, and many other directors who have like kind of Gatan, with films in big festivals, and they've also got on international productions going to the Philippines. So they're like they're quite like you can see like establishment of the Philippines. And Pepe Diokno, he's initially a film critic. He was a film student, film writer. His graduation film and control, I would say quite I don't know, like not miraculously, but impactfully won the Lion of the Future in Venice. I think it was in 9 or something with his graduation film, and it was like a revelation of new Filipino cinema at the time. Still very politically driven, very angry, but with a much more subtle and social angle, like young people angle. So when he finished Above the Clouds, he was doing this more experimental film that was more essayish. And Bianca asked me to come about this project, and when I go with my gut feeling, it's never about business sense. At that time I was just a naive young producer, so I just went with like I love and control. Like it was raw, like the cinema was very handheld. Like you could feel the filmmaker with you in the film, and it gives you an energy that I just wanted to support. And I was finding money for them in Singapore. We found some small money for them to finish the film. And so that's why I'm a producer. I actually was not on set at all. I was just helping them raise money.
Right. Yeah, and sorry, this might be a very Singaporean question to ask. So when you were doing all these films not for money, how were you thinking about,
how do you earn money?
A sustainable life as a creative person?
Funnily enough, right, the good thing about filmmakers, I think that's all of us included, right? When we know we can make something out of nothing, it's a very powerful knowledge to have. It's never about skill sometimes. It's also about how you can manifest things, how your brain works. And that because you can create things from nothing, actually you can do a lot of things. Like I did plenty of things, and none of them making money from films. But I was doing a lot of independent art space gallery sitting first. Then I started to manage shows. After that, I got the chance to produce shows, even invent shows. Like I wouldn't say curate because I didn't have a curatorial background, but we could really invent experiences. I was working at a time with Substation. We did stuff with Art Science Museum. We did stuff with National Museum. We stuff at Substation itself when there was the Minion Street building. I was gallery sitting at objectives, watching a lot of films as well. And the good thing about gallery sitting...
In fact, Jeremy, I recall very clearly this advice you gave me when I graduated from LaSalle. You told me, you know what you should do? You should go do gallery sitting.
Oh, wow.
And then,
I don't regret it.
Yeah, and then you said, while you do gallery sitting, you can write your script. I still remember this advice.
I did so much writing when I was gallery sitting, and not only that, like actually to see work being put up, right, is a real marvel.
Yep.
You learn. I mean, I learned so much, and reading text as they are being put on the walls.
Yeah.
The first person to see these things, and artists is always there to talk about it. Their favorite buyers or the galleries or curator, whatever. It was amazing. I mean, because of these experiences, I got to work with Jun Fong for the first time when he was working with Perlam Galleries on his more visual art work, assisting him with his show making. Then later on, working with Ken Chan on things like Drive. You know, before State of Motion, there was Drive, the Substation version, whereby it's like a lorry tour around Singapore with a TV screen and a portable battery mounted onto this. People wearing headphones, driving through AY, CTE. It was almost like vagabond lifestyle. But I believe that's when I truly understood what it means to dedicate yourself to something. It's like you are a monk, you don't eat much, you don't have generic human pleasures. You could never work. You know, when people ask you out, I have to say no, because in my mind, okay, even if I order one sugar cane, just $1 or whatever, I have to split the bill, because you know when you go out with friends, you always split the bill. I could never afford like 14. I always said no. I was a hermit for a long time, but for the people who knew me at the time, they know that, okay, if you want some free shit done of quite okay quality, you call Jeremy Chua. Right? And the go-to default for like free driver is Chris Yeo. Every time we need a free driver, we call Chris Yeo. Can you imagine, like, before she was a golden Chris Yeo did free driver, all his friends, 13 Little Pictures, Dion Cho, Ken Chan, paying like Jie Kai. I think even Gladys, he was helping and something else. And anyone who called him Chris for help, Chris would just say, hey, I can PA drive for you. No, just buy me copy, or like he's the most. And I just learned from these kind of people. Like, I guess I believe that they were artists, and I so wanted to be part of their world that I was so happy to be it. I knew, like, okay, if I need a job, I just ask Objectives. Objectives gave me a gallery sitting job. If I need something at NMS gave me something. Like I think when people know who you are, especially if you are a maker, if you make stuff, you're a filmmaker, if you're an artist, people trust you, because to make art is so difficult. To make film is so difficult. Actually, it's so difficult. I can't even explain. You can almost do anything. You know, running a festival now, chicken feet, you know, is like, I mean, like, you're just not working Saturdays. I mean, come on, we are working Sundays. You know, you're stressed out working 8 hours or 9 hours. You're working like 14 hours easily, you know. So it's
true.
It's true. Don't do stuff. I mean, currency is money. It's just a tool. I don't think of money as something that shapes my life. I think of the work I do that shapes. The work is the currency. If I can do great, I'm actually, I mean, come on, this IP is worth more than my flat if the IP is successful, right? So it's more about, who am I? Do I believe that I'm at that level? I can say in the next time that, like, Steven Spielberg is a name, like, you know, like all these big, important producers of today, like, they have their own label, their own brand, like, that. I think that means, and that's worth a lot more than cash.
Yeah. So it's hard to. No, I haven't. No, I haven't. It's been a while since I stepped into a gallery. So going back to that period, right? When did you think, when did you thought to yourself, okay, now it's time to start my own company, And what was your vision behind the company when you were conceptualizing it? And why the name Potocol?
There's few reasons. Firstly, because I had gone to an exhibition at LaSalle during that time. I think it was part of Tropical Lab. And I really liked the works there. It was about relating to Singapore as a port city and what that means for us as people, and also how do artists reflect on that. The idea that we are trade related, the idea that we are entrepreneur related, that we are not resource related. And for me, this idea of the port of call becomes like a metaphor for so many things. Like the creative process is also like that. There's no one person who is a real dictator. It is a collaboration. It is a teamwork. And I wanted a company that understood that it's collective, that I could be the founder of the company, but I didn't want to work with subordinates. I wanted to work with equals, people who were going to push me and who were creating stuff with me together and who believe in their work without me having to tell them that they are great. Who just knew that they want to be great and they were fighting tooth and nail, working as best as they can to be great. And so the idea of Potocol was the idea that we wanted to be like, it's a play on, I guess, a port of call. And I just woke up on my mattress when I was in my parents' house, when I was visiting, I think during Christmas or something, because the collapse, I think October, November, December. And I just said, okay, this is the name of the company. That's like, it doesn't mean it's like Colgate. It means nothing. It's not, it doesn't mean, but it's just I like, because I want to remind myself that this company is collecting space.
Right. I see.
And that was how it's formed. I formed it only because I didn't have a choice. One of the investors I spoke to said that, hey, can you please start your own company so that I can invest into it? The money goes into entity that is building IP, is building identity in the world. And I guess it also sparked half of myself, which is actually more entrepreneurial. I always wanted to have my own thing. I didn't think it was a business, but I guess I realized that it was a business later on. And now I have, I think, 4 companies. I really like the idea that you can bring a vision to life in the way that you set and in the decision that you make, purely from your choice. There's no boss, there's no directive, there's no KPI, there's no force from above telling you, okay, this is how you do things. And I think that's a challenge about what I thought was artistic direction, right? It didn't start from film in the first place. For me, it started because I had a great visual appreciation for runway shows. It sounds very lame, but I enjoy watching like runway shows from haute couture labels. And this, I guess it might have been Paris inspired, this obsession with spectacle, beauty, and who is the person who came up with this show concept, with the action, but also the extravaganza behind it. And I guess that made me excited about what it means to have an artistic vision, that you set a company's agenda, that people know you for your work because of a string of collections, a string of work, not just one, and they're not disparate. Actually, all the books are connected. They have a similar philosophical bent, they have a similar make principle, they have a similar defiance to something. And I could never do that at Akanga because Akanga is France. That's France home. And although as much as I would have loved to work as Akanga staff ever, it was impossible because I'm not a staff. I knew very early on that I'm not just a worker. I wanted to be a maker. If I was to create a body of work, I need a label. A label means sooner or later I need to start an office. So that's what happened.
And what was your... Yeah, sorry, John, you go ahead.
Sorry, I was thinking like you were saying how like you wanted to create a company with this body of work. It's kind of like a record label in a sense,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what was the first project or the first few projects that you took on under Potocol?
The first year was 2014, and we had Raja's project, which was later on, let me attach myself to that. We had Kapatiran, which was Brotherhood, and then Diaz film, and then shortly after I picked up Nicole and Ziwei. Nicole first, Ziwei later, because Ziwei was another invitation from Fran. But actually, Ziwei and I knew each other way before that. But I was not at a stage where I could say that I could produce the way that Ziwei wanted. So he chose Fran because he wanted to have that direction. And I talked to Nicole because we are friends for a long time. And I chose her because I think I knew what she wanted to do. And I knew how I can add value to that. Of course, 10 years later, the starting point is very different from the finishing point. But I think the journey, as what I said about the LaSalle curriculum, like the journey is what I go for. I very rarely go for a result. But all the directors I pick somehow in my own naive way, I believe they would all be done. I just have that belief. Of course, not everybody got there, but I didn't have a fighting chance to bring them there. I wouldn't have picked up the project, actually.
And you're also well known for, working with a lot of non-Singaporean directors, whether they are from Bangladesh or China.
Yeah.
How did these collaborations start? Like, I think earlier you shared with Pepe, you guys started out as friends because you mentioned you were living near him, or...
Yeah, we were neighbors in Paris.
Right.
He was just few
Yeah,
streets
you were
down.
neighbors. Yeah, so how did your collaboration with Ying Liang, with...
He was also through friends. He was through Lisa Wendy. We had just started a cine movement at the time. And
right, I remember that.
had
Yeah.
just gotten a lot of hot water because of his prize in Locarno with When Night Falls. He won Best Director in Locarno. And he was untouchable to the Chinese producers. He was just toxic to that industry because they were blacklisted. He was sort of blacklisted. Actually, he still might be blacklisted.
Yeah, I believe so.
So Elisa told us to meet because she knew that I was working with Love and Pepe, and she knew I was interested in that kind of directors with quite idiosyncratic style. And we had met, and his story was like, you hear the synopsis and you already love it, right? It's about this family who is separated because of exileship. The mother and daughter live apart. And now, because of Chinese policy, they have to meet in a third country. They cannot meet in Hong Kong, they cannot meet in China, they meet in Taiwan.
Yeah.
And by Taiwan, if you're a Chinese national, you cannot go 自由行, you cannot go free and easy. You must go by tour. So in order for mother and daughter to connect, mother and daughter have to go on a tour together, and they have to go through their family reunion through this landscape and tourism of Taiwan. And the idea of it was just, wow, what a poignant...
Yeah, very compelling.
Visual. The synopsis alone was fantastic. So I just told him, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but let's go.
Yeah.
But then we started to work with other financiers and producers and put together everything in Taiwan. So it was really, I think the beginning of it was really friends. Because when I went to festival as a young person, like very few people pay attention to what I do. Like when you have 1, 2, 3, even if I had film in Berlin and Cannes, like of course more people write and answer my emails, but the truth is that there are more important producers that the market wants to talk to and work with. I think luckily people like Elisa believe in me as well, and she was a student of Ying Liang, and because Ying Liang liked Elisa and trusted in her, he trusted in me quite automatically. And it's funny because I was very young at the time, like I don't know, 26, 27, 28, like I wouldn't trust a 20, but I kind of felt like people knew that even though I was not experienced, that I had a genuine love for things that I love. Let's put it that way. Like when I like something to the max. I'm not a 5 upon 10 kind of person, a 0 or 10 upon 10. And so when I talk to them about their project, if I'm 10 upon 10, I'm giving you 10 upon 10. And I think that's when the trust is built, because when we talk about scripts, like some producers might just give you some notes here and there. Okay, good luck, go shoot, here's your money, bye-bye. But I mean, I'm trying to look at everything, like, hey, do you think about this? What about that? This doesn't work because of this. And even as a young person, I kind of feel like they took me as okay, he's just saying stuff. I will take what I want to take. But I think I slowly had to earn respect from all these directors because, I think I was just very young and I was not really knowing what I was doing. If I had to go back now, I would do things so much differently. But maybe also because I know too much now, it's also corrupted how I work. Take shortcuts.
I don't know, because I'm just curious, like what would you have done differently? Because as in, I'm trying to think back to like 2015, 2016 when we first met. Even back then, you always struck me as someone who could really think critically about film. And actually, I just wanted to ask, how did you develop that way of thinking? And going back to what you just said, like, what would you have done differently?
I think critical thinking comes from dissatisfaction. And I felt like
Dissatisfaction.
I was dissatisfied with a lot of things. And I couldn't just say I was dissatisfied. I had to explain it, prove it, and then argue my case. And oftentimes in Singapore, it will still get erased. It will still be dismissed. And I had expressed this since I was a young child at primary school. But people just a lot of times dismissed it. But I think I never let that sense of dissatisfaction go. Like I was always like, if I was dissatisfied with something, I would just say it, and I have to now process, okay, why? Why am I dissatisfied with this? And what is the solution that I can propose? And so reading a script, writing a proposal, it became, it's not good lah. Like if it's 7 upon 10, it's just not good. Why am I dissatisfied? Now I have to make it better. And what changed is that not only I was dissatisfied, but somewhere in my 5-6 years ago, I understood how the market works. I understood how people buy. I understood how people sell. I understood how people produce in relation to people, how people sell and buy in the chain of things. And then suddenly things make sense. Hey, why do you choose to cast this person instead of that person? Why do you choose this camera over that camera? Why do you choose this location over that location? Why do you choose this DOP over that DOP? Everything suddenly makes sense. And it's something that you cannot understand until you understand. It's like a lot that has to happen. It's like an awakening that has to happen.
Right.
Because I begin to understand that the market is not idealistic. The market is not naive. It is not a dreamer. The market is driven by dollars and cents. Somewhere, someone is paying rent to a cinema chain. Somewhere, someone has to pay for poster design, trailers to release to an audience, get them to the cinema to earn back their living, to pay their staff who is now doing things from popcorn to release to acquisition. Somewhere, someone is running a business. And somehow when I understood a lot of how the chain reaction works, right? And I understood that good film doesn't mean good business. Bad film doesn't mean bad business. You suddenly realize that, okay, there's a trickle, very down effect to the very point whereby if you tell me, hey, I want to work with this DOP, I can already imagine, right, 50 floors above, right? Is that good for business? But it's insane. When you crack some formula, right? When you crack some gravity formula, you just can calculate, velocity, speed, whatever. You can collect, right? Once you have that formula, you understand, okay, I must do it. And so then I begin to debate with my director, hey, what about this? If we do it this way, the opportunity comes up for French distribution. We might get French producer to come aboard if you do it this way. If you are thinking about that kind of actor, maybe we have to come in through that angle because that's how we're going to get them. So suddenly a lot of the strategy becomes like a real life board game. You have to really, like your whole business existence depends on these decisions that you're making. And you can't even explain it. You can't even teach it in school. I'm not even able to explain it right now. It's like, why is English language explained this way? Like, you can't. It's just the way it is, right? So the more you understand the way to use grammar, so I would say that there's a producing grammar. Once you understand the market, once you have met these buyers, sales agents, programmers, distributors, once you've met people doing marketing, and they tell you what was successful, what converted to sales, what didn't. When you study this data, suddenly you realize, hey, I did this differently and that was a success. I did this wrongly and that was a surprising success or was a flop. And it's like the mathematical equation is not static. It's changing every day.
Yeah.
So like you have to keep going to the market. Like you just can't stop.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting and important topic to really discuss, and I really want to spend some time on this with you. Because I don't know if you agree or disagree, but would you say that ultimately film is a business, whether you're making art house films or quote unquote mainstream films, right? Because at the end of the day, there are distributors and buyers at the end of the line. assessing whether your film is suitable for their respective markets?
This is a lesson I learned from fashion also, because I watch a lot of fashion documentaries.
Yeah.
I can't remember which creative director once said that it's a balance between art and commerce. If you're known for the art and you cannot sell it, then you didn't succeed as well. The art is not, artwork was not successful. If you were just business and you had no artistic backbone, something to stand on for you, then it's also bad for the business, right? And so I learned very early on to not be afraid to say that, hey, let's think about the market for just a little bit. It's not embarrassing to say that. Some people think that it is, but when the way I approach it with my directors, I never tell them that it's embarrassing. I always tell them first and foremost, hey, we are making artwork first, but we must know how we are going to actually sell it and make an impact so that your name becomes a brand synonymous with a certain kind of artwork. And so the business is the art in that sense. It is welded together. If you cannot,
if it is possible, right? Can you give us a concrete example of where you got this script and how you work with the director to position this script into a certain type of film, and also related to that, how you position the director as a certain type of author? Yeah, if you can use if it's possible to use a real life case study, and then you can talk about how you develop the script from that commercial lens all the way down to casting, not just of the cast, the actors, but also the crew, the top of line creatives.
I think I should pick a project that's international, because with Singapore there are some names that I would have to say, and that might be uncomfortable for some people. We had obviously chosen some people over other people because of business reasons. Okay, let's talk about Rihanna. Very safe. I won't throw anyone into a deep end.
Okay. Can you briefly introduce what is Rihanna, this film? What's the log line? Who's the director? How did you get to meet the director? And how did you develop the script with him?
Rihanna was a film that was born out of a collaboration with me and Muhammad Abdullah Saad and Abdullah Muhammad Saad, sorry. And we first met at SG in 2016 when Yellowbird and Live from Dhaka was in competition. And we had watched each other's films. And actually, when I was with the cinema hall watching Live from Dhaka, I had this serious envy, this guy writes way better scripts than I do. As a writer of Yellowbird, I was very self-judgmental. I was like, wow, this guy just understands. I was trying to convey things like melancholy, isolation, pain. But wow, Life from Dhaka just does it, I wouldn't say better, but in a different way that I really admire and respect it. And your writing is just subliminal. It's even if you shot everything with just, $15,000 with a camcorder and, with just friends, and because it was so ugly, he had to do it black and white so that you cover a lot of the mistakes or whatever. I think that it doesn't matter because the substance is there, the core is there, and what you want to say about Dhaka today and what you want to say about economy today is so powerful that I want to work with you on the next film. So we worked together on the next film, and the film is called Rihanna. It's about a woman who witnesses the aftermath of an alleged sexual assault in a school. Because there's a bit of hush-hush and the victim is very scared to say the truth, Rihanna, the witness, pretends to be the victim so to get the perpetrator. So suddenly the perpetrator becomes the victim becomes the witness, and the witness becomes the perpetrator. So the roles sort of swap organically because of this decision that she makes. So that's general storyline. And how far will this woman go just so that justice is done in this country whereby, Bangladesh is known to be one of the most, not say sketchy, but slippery parts of the world. Things can go untapped, crime can happen because they can silence things. And so he was trying to criticize this about why do we keep quiet? Is it wrong to stand up? Why do we get judged for standing up? There are some times whereby we want to get French co-production, and we wanted to obviously we were targeting Cannes. Obviously, nobody starts a film project and don't want to think about Cannes. So we think, okay, let's try. get into this French industry. Let's get some French post-production, get this high quality of post-production to help production. But actually, the French co-producers didn't really like the way the woman becomes the perpetrator, how she accuses that she was the victim. They say that it makes this woman like a villain. Like, why do we need that? And
The French producer said that.
yes. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, I can go two ways. If I go the way of the French, I would just be like quite a typical producer. Just, okay, that's the way. Just do it for the grant. Just make the application. But the director is quite adamant, this must happen. Otherwise, it's just a whodunit, right? It's just did it happen? Right? It's just a question. But without this twist, the stakes couldn't be raised. And because I understood that, there was a challenge to make now. Like, do I go with this way or do I go with another way? But that changes the whole financing structure. And that changes the whole make also of the film. But what I realized was that Bangladesh is not a country that makes films very often. And I knew that we had a bit more money from Life from Dhaka, and we had a crew that already worked with the director before, that the production value was going to be a bit better. Rather than forcing or tricking the director to go in with this French style, I told him, hey, actually, it's better that we take it your way. Because you know Bangladesh well. When we are going to pitch it to programmers later on, we're not pitching that it's a French co-production. We're pitching that this is going to be the first Bangladeshi film that's going to make an impact in the world. And because the director has a very clear understanding of Bangladesh, and so I told the French producers, hey, sorry, we're not going to change our script because you want your CNC. We want to keep the story this way. If you're not happy with it, we will just go without you, but we'll find other ways to finance the film later on. And so, I mean, this is obviously not the most clear-cut business direction, but it was a clear pitch that I understood later on that it's better to have a director who was very pure in his point of view. Because when I was going to be that middleman to voice the director's point of view, I shouldn't be the one that says that, oh, it's a French co-production and this is how the story goes. But actually, it's not what the director wanted. I would rather say that the director has a very clear view of Bangladesh today, and the in-between pressure of where women sit, especially when they are not in position of authority, when they're not in position of respect, when they are seen as villains, when they try to stand up for something that could be going against the upper authorities. And it became a way to sell the art and the artist more than... And I think that's what the brand is about. That's what Potocol is about. We are very director-focused. We make choices because at the end of the day, we're not thinking about just the production. We're thinking about just like a gallery, right? When the audience walk into the gallery and experiencing the text on the wall, the position of work, like everything has to come from that very clear artistic branch. And every decision that we make that could be business or financial related still should be born from when we are fighting at that very, very last stage, when we're presenting to the public, exhibition time, what would be the best call? Because we already know who our audience is, how we want to be judged. I think I don't even know if I answered the question, but a lot of the choices sometimes are not always business financial. But somehow I think because we believe in the brand, the business comes naturally with the brand. For example, films will take the film, took it because they knew us from before. They knew us from Lullaby, from Love's film. And it was easy for me to, there were also other sales agents who wanted us to change the film I did. Like they said, the last scene is too brutal. The mom shouldn't threaten the child. Because ultimately, I guess it's a film about motherhood, about a woman's place as a mother and what world the mom wants to leave the child behind into, and how she's trying to shape her mind. And there were a few sales agents who told us, cut the last scene. We don't want to see it's too brutal. The mom cannot be depicted as such a brutal woman. She just endured such a brutal ordeal in the office. Why do you give her such a brutal ordeal and pass it to a child? It's just mean, it's just nasty. But we decided to go to the sales agent who said that, hey, the ending is perfect. It's the way, brutality is the way you want to convey, how it is. And actually, we did quite well. Like, in terms of the critical reviews, it was quite positive. People really felt like the ending scene was gut-wrenching. The critical response was quite positive. We had a lot of festival sales. We sold to a couple of territories that were quite unexpected, like East Europe. We sold to America. It was I think my first film whereby we had a nice sale to America. And I think Cannes competition ultimately is not competition, sorry. We had a kind of certain regard. We had a Venice competition, which the director said no, which I was like, But it was great. We really loved it. I think it
What
also
was why turn down Venice competition in favor of a certain regard?
we were thinking about the Bangladeshi market. We knew that Venice competition in Bangladesh is not very known because, I mean, as you know, if you're not middle class and above, you may not even know what is Venice, Berlin, Cannes, Sundance, Toronto, right? You will just be working bread to mouth, foot to mouth, like just every day, just living your life. So we needed something that's going to grab headlines, and we knew that, okay, if it's Cannes, the first Bangladeshi Cannes official selection, in that regard, that it would change the narrative in Bangladesh in a very big way. And so, which I think it did. If it was in Venice, maybe it would have been a smaller ripple effect in the country. It would have been a bigger change for the director's career. But I think we went for what executive producers felt was clever. And the director also said that a lot of his colleagues don't really know what Venice means, but everybody knows what Cannes means. So you could also say that's a business decision.
What colleagues are this? I was just excited, they know, but they don't know that.
Bangladeshi crew, his
Okay.
Not Singapore.
Okay.
Singapore, of course, we know competition is competition. It's a different tier. But recently, of course, Nicole and I were thinking about business as well. Like, we recently did a little cut of Last Shadow, so we make it a bit tighter in the Singapore sequences, because Anthony and even Nicole this feedback that, hey, actually, if you had just trim a little bit, you might have a better chance at online distribution. So we talked about it, like thinking, okay, we had our festival premiere, we did quite well in different territories, we had been in all the continents, we had sold to France, we had sold to US. Why not Japan? Why not online? So we were thinking also, how can we make that adjustment to help the audience to really appreciate the film a bit more? It's more easy to get into film. And so we had made a certain trim recently, and now we're trying to talk to more distributors in Japan. Maybe online distributors as well. This is like some of the more like literal cash distribution decisions that's related.
Right.
But I'm curious as how you meant. Sorry, you go.
No, I was just curious how, like you were speaking on Japanese distributors and then how is it working? How is it like working with them, communicating?
Japanese people?
Yeah. Like especially with Nicole's film.
Japan has a very strong history of cinema. So their work ethic, their system of working is it's just very high level. Like, just give you an example, when we were auditioning for our main character, right, who is a 14-year-old child actually. In Singapore, the young adult will come and they would read some lines, they would say hi, introduce themselves. In Japan, they would memorize the whole script that we gave them. They will come and they will recite the whole monologue for you. And they will be reciting for you the monologue with the full range of emotions already there. Like, they have prepared it 3-4 days in advance. They have agents who will tell them what time to arrive. They're super like, the whole thing just feels like people who really love their job but get paid to do it well as well. Like it's almost like a real industry.
Yep.
They're so trained to that precision. The crew are so quick. They are very experienced with like lighting for cinema camera. They don't have this kind of 3.19 TV point of view. They are very, very meticulous, but also very precise in the way they execute. Lighting, set design, like they draw, like it was insane. Like, you cannot imagine the before and after. Like, we see it looks like a normal place, and when we see the set, it's like, this is the, like, how did they?
Right.
They just have a lot of systems in place to get things done. The problem I felt was Japanese people are, as you know, fixed. Like, when you tell them A, it means A, B, C, D, E. Singapore, however, I found a shortcut. A can cut to C, can cut to E, can cut to Z. Japanese cannot. C, D, E, F. Once you set a system, you do not change. You set in January, you don't suddenly tell them April, you change your mind. Cannot. Boom.
Yeah.
So as a Singaporean person, I had to realize that, oh my goodness, I cannot be looking for shortcuts. I must be looking for shortcuts first and then tell them what I want.
Yeah.
Because collaboration with Japanese is not really like, let me tell you what I feel is a good idea. It's more like, how do you want me to help you? If that's what you want, that's what you get. And this I'm going to get then. No changes. So, but they do it very proficiently and very well.
Yeah.
But the moment you have to adapt, the moment you have to improvise, impossible. Sorry,
going back to the business of film, right? The market. So for upcoming producer who is maybe producing his or her first feature film, and obviously they have no experience with the business side, how would you, can you provide a framework, right, to think about how to optimize for the commercial potential of an art house film?
Yeah.
Even just now earlier you mentioned, right, even the DP affects how
Yeah.
commercial the film is.
Give you
Is that
example.
even possible?
Give you
Yeah.
example. Give you example.
Please do.
I was at a Berlinale festival talking to a sales agent for Picture 3, and they were representing Bradley Liu's film called Motel Akasha. It's like an art house horror film. Monster horror, creature horror with live effects, everything. Quite a traditional, structure. And what we did was we worked with studio, we worked with a big studio investor. We had hired certain actors so that they were like festival, like birds of passage actor with like some brown color, like big Malaysian actors and red carpet friendly. And when we went to the market and we asked Picture 3, how was the teaser and for the film was going, because it was going to premiere later. A buyer came and they asked, was the VFX artist American? Because if he was American, they'll be willing to pay more. Can you tell us who was it? We're like, oh, very proudly. Oh, it was White Light. They're one of the best houses in Thailand. They do all the Thai horror films. They work with many different kinds of creatives from Pichapong and blah, blah, blah. We were very like, oh, we're best Southeast Asia. And the market was like, oops, sorry, no, it's not American, sorry, we are only going to pay this price. I was just thinking, wow, even the choice of rotoscopists, right, had this price tag differentiation, like, they even care what their body of work was, whether they were the best in the region. If it's not American, it will be at a certain price. That was the baseline from the buyer. And this is like for horror, naturally genre, like, of course, VFX means, something. And then I realized that, so when a buyer buys a work, they're not just looking at the film. They're also thinking about how they're gonna sell it, right? Like, when they promote Del Toro film from the director of Pan's Labyrinth, right? They will say this kind of stuff like, like producer of this big film, whatever. And somehow when the DOPs are award winning, when they are very, very good, that also adds a lot of financial value. Not only to the programming side as an artistic work, but also from the commercial side, as not commercial as in like Batman commercial, but art house commercial side, as a film that a bigger label might acquire, or like a bigger, like a Neon might acquire over like for example. So then you realize that, even like the actors mean something, because it would affect how the perception of the value from the audience would be. So like, when we selected Leon Dai for
Tomorrow is a long
time, we had to clearly make the case that, okay, Leon Dai, a bit shaky with the Chinese market. He was a bit,
anti-Chinese.
A bit activist, Okay, are we willing to sacrifice that market? If we make that choice, we must be willing to make that sacrifice, right? So, like when we were thinking about actors for Nicole, like we talk about Masato Nagase, we're thinking, okay, who is an actor who has been to big festivals like Cannes in Kawase films, in gangster films from Jarmusch, and not gangster films, but like early Jarmusch film and other gangster films. Like, he's a cult actor. Like, okay, maybe like if we get Nagase in, and we tell sales agents that there's Nagase, then they're like, okay, maybe there could be Japanophiles who would be like, oh, I want to watch this film. It's almost like making strategic decisions to have a gameplay later on that you never knew that you might need in pre-production if you didn't think about it.
Right.
So there's no formula for it. But when you make a choice, you can't live with that decision in terms of its financial potential returns.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question next. I can cut out this part if it's too sensitive. If you were to reflect right now, right, on why Last Shadow at First Light didn't get into Cannes or any of the top festivals, what would your takeaways be? If you can share.
I think there's a few reasons. I think a lot of these bigger festivals, first and foremost, are smaller in terms of the number of films. So by sheer mathematics, actually it's very competitive. Every year,
of course,
3 or 4 Southeast Asian films max, right? So the odds are always like stacked. That's like number one, it's very tough. Number two, because like when you are doing a film that is more on the side of like emotional family drama or coming of age film, it sometimes loses its urgency compared to like political drama or social political events kind of narrative.
Yep.
And so family stories could be seen as a smaller narrative that bigger festivals might be like, okay, I have already had family dramas before. I may not need one if it doesn't have a very big twist or a very big cast or very big cinematic, crazy kind of aptitude. So I think for Nicole's film, it would have been great to be like Critics Week, a young boy showing something, having something to say about how people today deal with grief and loss and how we have quite a short-term memory in terms of natural disasters of today, etc. I don't think it's easily a Kanzen film. Kanzen is more like, what's that bravery? What is that counter rebellion you are doing with cinema today? So that regard has this scale, like what's your scale? How big an audience can you catch as an art house director? You might say that, okay, Dark Shadow is maybe more like a family small drama, like every country would have a family drama. And so it doesn't make it specific to. So I think it's not that the story is a problem. I think it's that on hindsight, we could have been a bit more ambitious on some things, but maybe we were held back on our budget also. And we were held back because of COVID. We cut things here and there. And suddenly we had less time to do this, less time to do that. So I think as a COVID film, it was okay. And San Sebastian for me is also a place whereby it's like a stepping stone festival. It's like a festival can upgrade your next film. So it's not like ABC Festival. It's not like very small.
Right.
Like, I don't name any to insult them, but like I think San Sebastian has that platform where people are still scouting. Latin world is watching, and in Europe, there's some Bong Joon-ho's films. First film was in San Sebastian, for example. So you can say that there is a stepping stone. So I told Nicole like it's okay, like because we were considering shooting wait for Berlin because we applied to Cannes, then Locarno, and then like Toronto, etc. But we got some and like no, like actually it's not a bad place. Like don't wait too long. There'll be a new batch competition. I think the film just needed its own space to be relevant because maybe the tsunami was a very long time ago. It was not on the forefront of people's minds. I mean, at a point of time, people were dealing with like migration, fascism, the war, both in Syria, in Lebanon,
Ukraine.
in Afghanistan, there are so many other things very urgent. I think Nicole's voice is still very important because it's her experience. She wanted to talk about trauma. So I would never tell her to change the story to fit a festival. But it was already going to be slim because of certain, criteria that maybe a bigger festival would have. So I really knew that from the beginning, like, Critics Week, if you can do or die. But that year they picked Tiger Stripes. I mean, rightfully so, so I won a prize there. So I think it's you can't know who your competition are. Like I was not part of Tiger Stripes team. I didn't. There was no strategy with them. We were just competing with them. It was more like just oftentimes, even as producer, we are not in control of the film at all. We are at the hands of what the whole market is doing, but it doesn't make your story less important or your film less good. I think that's the bottom line.
For sure. So the film was only finished in time such that Cannes was the first place to submit.
Every film I do, somehow the timing is like...
Can't it be finished earlier such that you can submit to Berlin and Sundance and then Cannes?
Cannes is special for me. It was my first ever festival was Cannes, and I think also it was Pierre Rissient. Like when you live in a festival because of the people there, it's like when you have your favorite wonton mee store, you just go back to your you don't need any other wonton mee. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's just a sense of home, and of course they don't always select your film, but you believe in their ideology, you believe in their taste, you believe in their mission and their structure. And for me, it's not that I don't like Berlin or Venice. Berlin personally, I almost like it more as a festival because I see so much more things there. But Cannes for me is just special. Like it's the first place Yellowbird the first ever red carpet, oh, that's not true, I was in lab years, but the first ever red carpet that I could say I was a writer, like as an artistic person, was Cannes. And it's very hard to explain the loyalty you get when a festival gives you that spotlight. I think for last film I was a co-producer, so I just came in as like, oh, there's Bianca, there's Love, and by the way, there's Jeremy. But in Cannes, it was like, hey, my name was like the third name there after Fran and Raja, and so it felt like a recognition, and then I just never forgot it. It was always very special.
Right. So when it comes to strategy and planning, because obviously you have a rough timeline in your head, like, okay, I need to submit to this festival. So if you work backwards, I need to finish by a certain date. And for you, that first festival is always Cannes. It's never an earlier festival like Sundance or Berlin.
Never.
Because isn't it a bit risky? Because if Cannes turns you down, obviously you want the next biggest festival, right? Which is Venice or Berlin, right? So isn't it like very risky?
So for Chu Yang, Sun Rain Must Fall, and for Natesh Hector's Tiger's Pond, they were both Cannes submissions that went to Berlin finally. So his film also,
Yes.
every film of mine from Berlin that you know of actually started at Cannes, except Love's film, except Lullaby.
So they took one
So-
whole year. Lah.
Yes, we
So-
submitted.
Sorry.
a whole-
Right, so sorry, I didn't really catch that. So for Chu Yang's film, and I mean Chu Yang is a very famous like Chinese filmmaker. His shot won, I think, best shot at Cannes for some
He won
context.
the-
So his film,
Yeah, and he won 3
Yeah, he
prizes.
won
the-
And he has 3 short films in Cannes before actually.
Yeah.
Competition.
yeah, he's a Cannes regular. So in this case,
didn't his film.
I think he was.
so
We worked with a new
in
editor
this
after
case,
Cannes. We started
Right.
post-production again. We did a new. In fact, you could say the film is very different. And people who saw the Cannes version and saw the Berlin version told us, "Hey, you edited the film. Some people liked it for the better. Some people say it's for the worse. But for us, we had to have that process because when Cannes gives you a no, it doesn't mean that the film is bad, but it means that you should work on something. And the good thing was that Christian had told us that you were very close. But the edit, you need a bit of time. Just keep working at it. And Chu said, okay, yes, I'm going to keep working at it. And so by the time we already was Toronto that year, and I was presenting Cocoon. It was my first time in Toronto. And that's when I met Mark Parenson, and I said, oh, you have to see this new film by Chu Yang. We just didn't make the cut for Cannes, and we didn't submit to Locarno. I don't think we submitted to Toronto, but we submitted to Venice. But Venice didn't pick up the film because they already selected their Chinese film by then. So do you want to look at it for Berlin? So I had planned it during Toronto to really meet Mark Parenson face to face. Mark Parenson was the one who gave me my first break with Ying Liang's film when we got a rejection from Cannes Directors Fortnight, and we were like the last to the point they called us. They said, Jeremy, this is the last decision. I'm so sorry. You just didn't make the cut. And they hung up, and we're like, I know we waited the whole. And it's like the worst. You just lie on the floor, you just die. Like you really just feel like you just. Than getting the news that you have like a heart attack, like worse than anything on earth. And then Mark Parenson said that, hey Jeremy, we'll give Ying Liang's film opening in Locarno, opening film. And that's when he started following my work. And so because I have this rapport with Mark, I told Mark, hey Mark, actually Chu Yang is like a very thinking director. He's not an instinct guy who is like on the set like laughter. He's really a meticulous planner. He's choreographed everything like insane scientist, like mad scientist, like everything is measured to perfection. He's that kind of perfectionist. I said that it's very hard to find. It's like, it's like a talent, it's something that you should try to focus on. And he said that almost immediately. He didn't even waste time. He said that if you say yes now, you don't say yes to any other festival, we'll give you the Encounters competition. And even Jacob Wong said that don't accept Encounters, ask for main competition. Jacob Wong will push for it. But no, Jeremy, you really need Encounters. This film will die in competition. When you fight with all these other big directors, you will be one of the, will not get a point of view out as well as if you striking competitions as Encounters, that he will put in a nice place. He will. And I just told Jacob was excited Encounters because I know Mark has a vision for where he wants to put the film. Didn't even flinch when he immediately said he wanted to select the film. This was the same festival. He saw it and he gave us the invite at the same festival that I was in, like just a few days later or something.
Right.
That's what you
Sorry,
know, like
just to give. Right. Sorry to cut you off, but just to give some context to our audience, who is Jacob Wong and who is Mark Pearson? Is it Pearson or Pearson?
So Jacob Wong is a film programmer and now running the Hong Kong film market, but formerly working as the Hong Kong Film Festival programmer. He's also a consultant for the Berlin Festival for the Chinese language films. So every Asian, mostly Chinese film passes through Jacob's desk. He will watch everything, and he travels everywhere to watch every Chinese language film that has ever been made. Mark Pearson is a critic and also, I think, the original, like one of the founders of, is it Science Sound or CinemaScope? CinemaScope, maybe.
CinemaScope. Oh yeah, I think it's
Yeah, CinemaScope.
CinemaScope.
Yeah, I think CinemaScope. And he has been the head of program for Carlos Chatrian's team for the longest time. He's like,
Right.
and so he's someone who really goes for that kind of different cinema. Like when under Carlo and Mark in Locarno, names like Miguel Gomez, names like Hong Sang-soo, yeah, they was in competition. These were never competition directors before, but like Wang Bing, you know, like they were all winning Golden Leopards in Locarno when other festivals would give them out of competition, etc. So it was like a bit more brave directors. And so with certain kind of films, you will go to certain kind of programmers and you will try to sell these directors' heart and vision and soul to them. And I think when the programmers trust your point of view and when you say something, they know exactly what it is.
Right.
They either buy it or they don't. And thankfully, I think Mark trusts me for I think I also like Mark.
Sorry, try to help me understand, right? I think what I'm struggling a bit to understand is why Chu Yang's film would be better in encounters than in competition. When the competition section, regardless of any festival, is the section that usually gets the most attention. And like even for I think for most people, right, when the festival makes its announcement, I think most people will just check what are the competition films. And maybe only the really diehard cinephiles will then check the films in the other sections. And Berlin has so many sections, right? It's just too many.
Okay, so we are talking on two levels. There's one level that is the more business level. And the people who knows, yes, competition is more important. But there's also a negative in competition. The competition gets the most press coverage, and negative press coverage can kill a film very fast. And no press coverage is considered negative press coverage. So if you're not one of the top 10 films in a 20 competition, you actually can die in a competition. You could be crushed by other competitors, and your sales can actually, because you become like a choice number 10 in a top tier company, it's better to be a choice number 1 or 2 in a small tier company of a distributor or buyer. So if in encounters, you're going for a certain kind of buyer. You may not be going for the big buyer, but you're trying to say that, hey, for the smaller buyers, here are the premium films for your kind of film. So there's a separate market going on. There's not the business, like big money type, but more like the, hey, good reputation, good critical review, good critical response. That's another way to build a career. So some films, if you put them in a big competition, you can be very talented, but it's like you're competing at Olympics. You might be like, 10 feet behind the nearest breaststroke sprinter, like that's embarrassing, and that will actually put you one step behind. So to be in the right competition where you have the maximum chance to win a prize, that guarantees your press coverage, that guarantees interest from distributors, whether they buy or not different because they will ask you for the screener anyway. That's most important. Credibility, respect, nothing to do with business. That's also another level. And you can only get that when the right film is in the right place. Sometimes it's not nice to say but sometimes when some bad films are in competitions, people say that, they pick them because of diversity, because the woman is a woman director, because it's African, because it's Asian, whatever it is. I'm not being specific, I'm just giving any minority group, the kind of press you can get can very quickly make buyers just go away. And then all of a sudden, of all the competition films, you could be like the last priority because the buyers are fighting for all the top. What are the top of the town? What reading buzz? What the newspapers will write about? What the public will be interested about? What radios will publish? What talk about? What the newspapers will publish, etc. And you don't want to be on the end whereby the review is just like a critic bashing you and saying that, oh yeah, I walked out of the film, there was booing during the film. It gives no confidence for your premiere, so that can be momentum killing. So finding the right spot is good. For example, Ziwei's film is in Generation. To me, it's not like the best section in Berlin, but it's very clear. Okay, those looking for young adult fiction, come here. We also managed to streamline our potential buyer because they have classified you in a certain place. Could a film have survived competition? Probably they would have said, slow, I don't understand, Asian, blah, blah. But in Generation, it's like, oh, I'm trying to understand young people in Singapore today. The angle is so different because the journalist or the reviewer or the person going into the film would be coming from a different perspective. I'm not watching a competition film. I'm watching a film that's meant for today. How can I write an article that relates to my young adult audience today? And so the reviews are very good. The letterbox reviews are very mixed, but the critical reviews for Ziwei in Generation were very good compared to some other films that might have been bashed for like, why is this film in competition? I think programmers know what they are doing. So sometimes it's also to like understand what is the strength of this section, not to fight against the tide. It's really go with the flow and okay, sometimes you need a PR, sometimes you need a good trailer, sometimes you need a good campaign, sometimes you need more. You tweak your strategy according to where you are.
I remember when I was in Berlin one year, right? And I forgot what section is it, but they programmed Casey Affleck's film that he directed. When the film didn't get released at all after it, no? Yeah, didn't get sold or anything. I don't know what happened to it, right? But then at the screening, right, like the film was okay, like it was not bad. But I think I get what you are saying. Like that was the right section for it to be showcased. So even though it didn't win anywhere after that, there was sort of a community and a right cozy space for that film to just exist there. And then after that, slowly vanish into oblivion.
Because also there's two kinds of respect you can get in industry. Oh, I respect you because you were in a selection that I respect. That's one kind of respect. I think the more important one that people are trying to get is that I respect you because your film is good regardless of where your section is. And the second one is harder to get. That means you actually made a good film. The first one means that, you just got a good label, you just got a good healthy label sticker or sticker here. That's also important for career building. Yes. Mutual trust, right? To work with one of the biggest directors in the world, as a producer, you would rather, for example, I would like to believe when Ying Liang worked with me or when any director chose to work with me, it's because they saw Yellowbird or they saw Love This and like, hey, I understand what Jeremy's point of view is, and I believe in that point of view. And if he chose me, it's because I share a similar thing and he believes in me too. Like I would like that kind of mentality rather than, he's got a camera doll film and like all these labels attached. I think that's quite hollow, It's important still for career building. I do not dismiss it at all. And sometimes in the worst case scenario, you do that and you boast about that when you're pitching, etc. But the true sustainability, longevity of a career is when people respect you because of whatever you do. It's not because you're in. Like for me, one of my favorite Apichatpong films is Cemetery of Splendor. It's not a competition kind of film. It's an uncertain regard film, right? But
it's fantastic.
For me, it's like it's better than I wouldn't say it's better lah. For me, it was more powerful. For example, I'm not attacking that film, but So, but I respect Apichatpong not because of those things. I mean, it's more because the film just touches you. But there are some films that are maybe too obsessed with getting those labels, and to me that's also important. To me, it's like if you can convert the most toughest critics and the most important programmers in the world to like your film and choose your film somewhere, that is a big win already for director or producer or writer or anyone.
And I thought it was interesting you spoke about how Ying Liang's film, did not make the cut for Cannes. But I thought it was a great film. Like, I really loved that film. I watched it in Mobi when I was in
Thank you.
In
He was there
London.
for a short time. You forgot it.
And then now you saying that you also realize that, you know what, it really doesn't matter if it didn't make the cut. Oh, of course it would be great, if it's in Cannes, but by itself, it is still, in my point of view, objectively a good film. Yeah.
I think that's, to me,
Right.
that's a great compliment coming from a fellow filmmaker, is that, hey, I really like the film that you made,
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than, oh, congratulations for going to. To
Yeah.
me, that's a bigger compliment. Sometimes it's very hard because there are filmmakers that I like, but I just didn't like a specific film, right? And it's very hard to share more, but then you say, oh, congratulations, you did so well. I'm so happy the film is traveling, Yeah, but I think that's what I think I strive for.
Yeah.
It's hard
Yep.
to achieve also.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to go back to Ziwei's film, right? And just now you mentioned Leon Dai. Because I followed Ziwei's work since his first film that he made in LaSalle. I think it's called Waiting, right? Or was that the second one?
Yeah. I'll think everything.
What was that? Yeah. And I even read the thesis dissertation that he wrote,
Oh wow.
where he talked about the importance of like real bodies in cinema, and he cited like Pedro Costa, Bruno Dumont. So I was expecting that same aesthetic when it came to his first feature, and I was mildly surprised, but also I understand why you guys casted like a professional actor, because of market reason, right? And I was just wondering if you and Ziwei had that kind of conversation, because obviously his artistic lineage is, people like Bruno Dumont. I think in his dissertation, he also cited Carlos Regadas. These filmmakers are very well known for using like non-professional bodies. At the same time, right, there's also contemporary filmmakers like Le Bao. If I'm not wrong, his film tastes mostly non-professional actors, right? But obviously it did quite well. Yeah, all non-professional. And did quite well critically. And also, I think there's also a few other Southeast Asian films with the same kind of like non-professional like philosophy. Yeah, so I was just curious, like what kind of discussions you had with Ziwei when it came to casting?
I think it was part strategy, but also part trying to understand what Ziwei's vision of the character was. I don't think Leon Dai was like the very clear front runner from the beginning. I think he became clear once we knew that we wanted to set it also in Taiwan and apply for Taiwanese funding. So from a producer's perspective, we're like very happy to hear a trusted name in the Taiwanese industry that we can apply grants for with. But I think what Ziwei was going for was more like someone who was able to portray a certain kind of stoic masculinity with occasional softness. Like he's someone who doesn't speak much, who doesn't flinch, but he is vulnerable at the core of it. And that he had to put on a front his whole life because that's what he was told to do. And so that kind of expression, that very gentle but bitter look was what he was going for. And I think he knew Leon from a lot of his past work.
Yeah.
Always like Leon Dai. And so when we told him, hey Leon, Ziwei, when we are casting, can we pick at least one actor who can anchor the cast, give the cast, and the rest of them were of course like, young actors. If sort of grounding when we are doing proposal writing, pitching, Taiwan distribution later on, to sort of have that bit of weight maybe when we are pitching. I think that's when either he wanted to go with Leon Dai. I think there was no other option after that. Like, he only picked Leon Dai.
Right.
Thankfully Leon was interested. So I think also it's an evolution of thinking. Like when you're making a short film, right, you are dealing with a pressure-free situation whereby at worst you just lost 10K. At worst you just made a film that went nowhere. At worst.
Yeah.
In a feature film, you can bankrupt a company. The worst is you're in debt.
Yeah.
The worst is that you are now, because in a short film, you make a mistake. Okay, you cover it with $2,000. In a feature film, 1 day can cost 20, 30K. 2 days cost 50, 60K. 3 days mistakes cost 75, 90K. Like the one small thing can cost 4 departments to increase in budget, and then 4 departments will cost 5 ripple effects, and 5 ripple effects cost you to have the it is really a intense thing. The stakes are very high. Every mistake is being judged by both the director and producer, because you can cause each other to go broke tomorrow. Like, you already receiving money from your family, friends. You already, because you are cash flowing things yourself. You are already trying to make things work with a lower budget, small budget, independent budget. And in a feature film, you can't afford to not consider when someone or when a producer says that, hey, there's some consideration that you take care of. If we hire this person, we could have that. If we don't, we will only have this. If we don't do that, we cannot prove that we can get a good Taiwanese contribution. We may not get this 150K. 150K means that you have 4 days less of shoot. 4 days of shoot means you have, and you cannot have a steady cam here. That one, we have less of this. Every decision has a ripple effect. It's quite it's intense, and it's of course in long-term discussion. It's not something you discuss and decide in one sitting. It's months and months and months of critical thinking about, okay, if I make this choice, where am I going? What am I making? Or what quality changes from my own vision? What am I compromising? It's inevitable, but compromise should come with the satisfaction that I'm compromising to help some other department, but actually I'm making something better. That's the best kind of compromise. And I kind of feel like Leon Dai, to me, I think to Ziwei also, is the best kind of compromise. Like, he sacrificed certain things to get something else, but what he got from it was quite big also. Like, the way Leon Dai look at scripts, right? The way he studies it with you, the way he almost guides the scene for the actors or other actors who are all non-professional, it's very different. It's hard to explain the intensity he brings on set, right? He's not he waiting for, it's work for him. It's a craft. It's an art and craft. It's an expertise, and have these young actors work with, I think they all really admire him also. It was a good experience for everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you were to, distill it all down, right? Let's say you were advising an upcoming producer. Would you say that basically, as much as possible, try to recruit or cast names that are known to festivals?
I wouldn't say
you
that.
have to optimize for both acceptance into Cannes or any other festival, and also to optimize your chances with the buyers.
Maybe from a different angle, the key takeaway should be you need to customize everything. Customize for a good cause, so that it's not result-oriented, but it's process-oriented. I customize anchor actor because it will help me when I'm working with non-professional actors. It will help me save time. It will help me apply for grants. By the way, it will help me later on distribution also. You know what I mean? Like, the customization has a reason, rationale, justification, outcome, target, rather than just making decisions because they are convenient, comfortable, or impressive. Because the truth of the matter is that it didn't have to be Leon Dai. We could have done it for some other character. We could have done it for something else. But why? Why? Like, it's the principle should be that you have free reign to use the world as your oyster, and you should pick the people you feel fits the role best to also accomplish many other ripple effects that could be beneficial for you as a business and as an artist, both at the same time. I think that is a very clever producer-director dialogue. And a producer-director who is transparent, honest, and fair to each other will give and take. Okay, I'll let you have this, but give me that. I need this to keep my sincerity here. And you need that for your business purpose later on, for example.
Yep.
So it is a give and take, but that's what's beautiful about that thing, as I said earlier, is that you can create anything from scratch. It's in you. You sort of know who you are. If you know who you are, if you know who you are, you have value. You will make something from scratch because you already know two Legos go together this way. A non-filmmaker can't do that. It's hard to explain, but only filmmakers can. I need that to happen. Otherwise, I don't have that. I can't tell my story. The missing point is here. I need this. I need to spend money on this. I need to spend actor on that. I need to spend extra shooting on this. I don't have this in the back. I need to reshoot it. I need to sacrifice that scene to get this scene. Only, like, these are discussions that actually affect a lot. And these are all business decisions actually. Although they are artistic decisions. So I think it's somehow it's either, so it's very connected.
So I mean, talking about business decision, right? In this case, how important is it if an art house film makes money or not?
I think it's important that art house film makes money because it keeps you sustainable. But if you think about art house career building, the real cash cow happens in the quite late game stage. Like you cannot say that Wong Kar-wai was famous because of his first work alone. Like by the time his big break came for like, like he was already on his fourth, fifth, sixth film. And you can say that building a reputation over time is also building currency.
Yep.
Because all of a sudden, the early works get watched again.
Matter. Yeah.
They get acquired again. They get into major collections. And then all of a sudden, the value for these things skyrocket beyond even a commercial director sometimes. And nobody is asking commercial directors, like let's say Seth Rogen. No one asking to direct your ads, right? But they're asking Wong Kar-wai to direct your ads. You know what I mean? Because it's like building the art house is not a one film fix. Body of work means that you need to be consistent over 3-4 films. And you need to make impact on each of them in at least a significant way. And you have to have a track whereby I can see a sensibility that's similar and yet still growing at the same time. A familiarity and a surprise. A split in growth. And I think that's what was new for me for example, Lee Chang-dong's Burning. Like for me, that was not a very Lee Chang-dong film in my understanding of what I like about it. It's more stylish, it's like it has music and not fancy stuff, very like slow phantom dancing in the sunlight. But I can see the progression, I can see that he's trying to attack something and he's going for another approach. And let's think about like Park Chan-wook's Decision to Leave, what a romance, like Park Chan-wook romance, it's built. It's like, the brand is shifting, at some point of time, Chai Min-liang is doing art house video art, it never dies. And it's not because one work is significant. It's because when you compare them as a body of work, this is alive. He's living in 21st. He's living in the world. Yep. He has moved from the 20th century to 21st century. He is. That's what artists do. They live and they tell what they experience, right? So I think that's what art house about. It's that sense of living is so present.
Right.
Whereas a commercial film, like let's say, Grandma Dies. I forgot the title of this film.
How to make millions.
Honestly, it's a popular film. Everyone loved it. It had a very good now Oscar shortlist. I mean, very impressive. But is it something that is going to be like, is people following this person's body of work?
Yeah.
As an artist, you may not do that. You may trust him to direct for you your next commercial blockbuster. Totally different, whatever it is. But I think as in art house, you are really focused on the impossible, the intangible. Not something so direct as box office. Sustainability is important. So
can I just ask, right, on this topic of art house, right, where do you see it kind of existing in this very, very complicated world of our visual culture with like content and all that? Just coincidentally, we are speaking about How to Make Millions as well, because that film seems to quite play the content game, and very well, is kind of tapping onto that frequency to expand its audience market.
House, I would say, is in a quite precarious position, mainly because I would say even festivals feel very pressured to not take as much risk as before, because they also realize that market is changing. And market is changing towards a more Gen Z habit. It could be like tech, it could be like different kind of, shall we call it, formulas. And they cannot ignore trends, right? They are not programming in a vacuum. They are totally relating to who their audience is. And I think unlike the past, whereby watching a good film is sort of the same as reading a good book, right? You really treat it as a more personal, spiritual time. Cinema has become mainly for entertainment and for social pop culture benefit in your life. It's no longer touching and emotional. I remember watching a documentary or a news reportage whereby Schindler's List was being played in Berlin or Germany, and at the end of the film screening, this reporter comes and say, "What do you think of the film?" And people literally bawling, like people are pissed.
Yeah.
They cannot imagine the pain these
I saw
Jews
that.
have gone through. And I was just thinking, wow, like I have not encountered that in a while. Like the last time I had that was maybe like when I was at a festival. I think that in my memory it was like maybe Patterson when I saw it in Hong Kong. I was alone at night. I was walking the harbour and I was thinking, wow, there's literature everywhere, there's poetry everywhere. I didn't even notice, like, and what a beautiful harbour. Like it's just such a unique thing, and it's very rare. Like recently, it's more like going to like increase my knowledge about film, know what industry is doing, entertain myself with my friend watching Dune or whatever, whatever pulling out their sleeve. But I remember like when I first saw, for example, the Kurosawa exhibition or the first Edward Young exhibition that I was working on when I was, like 10, 15 years ago, like that kind of philosophical punch in the gut is not common anymore. Maybe because I'm also age of my life, I'm worried about different new things. But then my whole generation, I guess, all my friends who grew up, like they had that cinephile phase when they are, that they outgrow because they have new worries in life. And the new generation, which I would say whose habits were greatly affected by COVID and went a lot digital, they don't really see like, Tarkovsky sounds boring to me. Oh, black and white, drama, slow drama, no thanks, There's a lot of obstacles because we are passing time so quickly nowadays, like waiting for a bus for 10 minutes is torture. How can you sit through a 2 hour film?
I want to quote something that you said in a Screen Daily interview. You said, right, cinema attendance are low and distributors are not taking as much risk as before. All the marketing budget is going towards blockbusters. I'm concerned that art house cinema might slowly adapt to become formulaic and conventional in order to be sustainable. It would be ironic. Can you elaborate?
The thing is, I was being very polite, if I'm being honest.
Okay, give us your not polite version now.
Not polite version, exclusively here.
Yeah. Give us the brutal truth.
One of the main reasons why I really stopped producing is because in the last few years, I realized that committees are the ones who are deciding who gets to make films and who doesn't, right? IMD has committee, CNC has committee, every country has a committee. And I began to realize that committees are not there to take risk or to be there for an artist. They're there to just fulfill a criteria, to do a checklist, to choose who has the highest chance for distribution and recommend this to the committee boss or president, right? And I realized this because of a couple of films. The first one was Cocoon Shell. From a director whom I thought the short film was amazing. Like, honestly changed my life. I can't even explain it. And I knew that the first moment I saw his film, in the same festival, I shook his hand and I said, we're making a film together. And we did it. And when I submitted the CNC application, you'll be surprised. Like, people really question, people really doubt, people really ask, must this happen this way? Why is this like that? Why is that so? Why is nothing happening for so long? Why are we talking about this? Why is it so spiritual? Why is it so Catholic? And okay, then it's like, right, I'm just okay, they didn't, it's not come to fruition. And of course, then ironically, once the film gets a Cannes selection, we miraculously get a post-production grant. Miraculously. Don't even know how, like they rejected it just 1 year ago. And then came Rafael Manuel's film, Filipino, which we are producing in post-production right now. The same thing is like, we present a script, I really feel that first and foremost, the short film is great. The script is honestly very, very, very good. I don't say this very often as a screenwriter myself. And I was so disappointed when I got the result that, doesn't this part, and I was like thinking, why are you commenting about the work? You are not the artist. You are the committee member. Do you believe in the artist or not? Don't tell me I did scene 5, this part too slow, that part what's going on. You don't come from Philippines. You don't know. Like, why do you pretend to know? Like, why trying to colonize our experience? You do not have the right to tell us who's right or who's wrong. Like, don't come and later give me, of course, Of course, they give us a post-production grant when we show them the film 1 year later, okay? And
Yeah.
it just made me realize that the formula has begun. There is
Yeah.
a formula to making an art house film that will get a CNC grant, that will get World Cinema Fund, that will get an IMDA fund. There's boxes you check, and once that happens, I'm just totally bored. I'm just totally tuned out by, okay, now I can't work with these directors because I'm short of funding. And that's what I talk about glass ceiling, is because we are so reliant on our ability to raise funding abroad. And now I feel that my own taste is being challenged by committee members who never understand where we come from. Like, they are just people sitting in committees, right?
Yeah.
Who have to try to evaluate 50, 60 proposals in a desk, and they're doing their best. I don't judge them in negative ways. The formula is begun. I honestly think it's very ironic. I go to many festivals, and I also sometimes feel like, yeah, the films are not so brave. Like, this film has all these 9 countries co-producing, it must be great. But then at the end of the day, you're thinking, oh, there's 9 film commissioners buying 9 booths, renting 9 parties, paying for 9 things. Oh, no wonder you are thinking it's good for your business. I mean, now as I run a festival, I understand it too. I don't love, right? I don't think the problem. I think I understand the reality is that everybody is finding it tough to sustain this excitement for independent cinema. And we come up with narrative, like look at Emilia Perez.
I haven't seen it. What's the issue with the film?
So currently,
Yeah, a lot of
now
issues
we
are.
are saying like
Yeah.
there's appropriation, there's like the misrepresentation of Mexican culture, and the real issue of cartels is not addressed in a meaningful way. It's
Right.
really decorative. It's really almost. But to be very honest, right, when we were watching it in Cannes last year, it was a colorful,
Yeah.
only colorful
Exactly.
musical in Cannes. People were exiting the halls and laughing and saying, "Oh, that was a very almost campy, film." And
Yeah.
you can say that it breaks the mold. I wouldn't say it's my favorite film, but I would say it does break a certain kind of mold. I mean, the music could have been better, of course. There's no real musical power in the film,
Yeah.
but it made people happy. It had a certain joy. I mean, definitely, I'm surprised that it got so many Oscar nominations. But I think as a film, it has an audience. It definitely could have been done with more sensitivity. But
When you say now there's formula, now there are boxes to check, can you tell us what are these formulas? What are these boxes?
wow, if I say it out loud, it will be first of all very subjective. But I think second of all, it will be very offensive because it's not good. The formulas are not good. But I think everybody's playing this game. I kind of feel like, I'm not saying everyone, but maybe like a lot of people know how to play it now. And for me, that doesn't make independent film as exciting as it was when I first started producing.
Right.
Because producers are sometimes getting too smart. They are getting too smart for their own good, I think. They're just sort of crafting things that are so... Like sometimes you read a proposal, right? You go to a market, you read a proposal, it's like, wow, it's like, I couldn't check more boxes on a proposal. I just know that, it's... but yeah, I think the instinct of like putting the director first is no longer there. Because committees are not able to evaluate directors in a very democratic way. There are some directors you love, there's some directors you hate. But there's some social topics you can jointly agree is good. There are some aesthetical approaches you can jointly agree are good. There are some way of writing and language you commonly agree are good. But there are some that are just unagreeable or disagreeable. So in that sense, it's not so merit-based, or it's not so... There's a lot of identity politics. There's a lot of like... I'm not saying a lot. I'm very generalized here in my criticism of something quite trivial in the greater scheme of... I just feel like, yeah, somewhere someone is just reading proposal that they have as a task, as a job. It's not always people that I agree with. And as I mentioned to you early on, when I am dissatisfied, I have a lot of... I don't give up about this. It's just, it's 0 100.
Jeremy, just to play devil's advocate, right? Like, if you look at, let's say, commercial mainstream cinema, where it's very clear cut, right? They want to make money, so they make films that their audience will enjoy and pay money and go watch. In the case of art house indie cinema, there is also an audience, right? And your first audience is the festival assessors, who are the festival programmers. That's your first layer of audience. And then you have the festival audience,
Yes.
You can say that art house producers and directors are making films for this group of audience. So shouldn't they try to check as many of those boxes for this particular audience that they're catering to?
I think that's interesting thought. Mainly because in the past, festivals were made for two reasons. The first reason, and this was mostly because of the war, I think, and probably fascism, and also mainly optics, is that it was used for mostly social propaganda. And once World War II ended and culture became a sign of freedom, a sign of harmony, a sign of diplomacy as well, I guess, a sign of world culturalism, a kind of globalized harmony, or some kind of culture exchange. It became about celebrating point of view aesthetics in contra to the traditional studio systems, because independent filmmakers were making things that were more relevant to daily life than your typical romance or your typical action or your typical drama, whatever that studios were making for, shall we say, general entertainment, money gathering purposes. So the festival and art house film became sort of a cultural artifact.
Yeah, like an alternative.
Yeah,
right.
something to that. I think that line is getting blurred more and more because of the proliferation of independence, right? Because digital filmmaking is more easy, because anybody can now study film school, and because now, the barrier of entry has become a bit lower and the competition is higher in small films. I think that festivals have to deal with the quotas in a different way, like geographical dispatch, like sharing of Asian films, African films, European films, Latin American, etc. That it becomes very difficult to accomplish the original task of what is that cultural artifact. We talk about Pierre Rissient.
Yeah.
He was not looking for the next check all the boxes film. He was looking for something that he wanted his French audience and Europe to discover as a film of undiscovered, new material, unexperienced form. Now, however, you'll be lucky if the programmer didn't watch your film on a link. Much less travel to your home and watch a film in front of you in a big screen and after have a chat with you in real life. So modernity has provided film industry with a lot of good things and a lot of bad things. The convenience and the accessibility has a double-edged sword effect to it.
Yeah, from the way I see it, like, art house film festivals have grown so big that they began to take on more commercial imperatives to survive. And I think because of that, it spreads to the films that they select. Right.
Yes, it spreads. And some festivals more than others for sure. You could never imagine that like right now, let's say many art houses are made per year, and everyone thinks that France is like, Europe is the place where people buy art house films. But if you think about it, even the films getting released in France today are like just maybe like the cream of the crop of the festivals. Like not every film gets selected to get distribution in France. Not every Sundance film gets distribution in America, for example. So it's bombardment effectively. So it's almost like programming. You can also say it's like swiping really. It's like doom scrolling. It's not very. I feel I'm and I'm sure there are very good programmers in the world. I'm very generalized.
Yeah.
And imagine I have friends who watch 7 films a day programming. Insane. How by the time you watch your 4th film, aren't you like light? Aren't you? Do you lie down? But oh no, crunch time is the peak period. I am watching. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's insane. Like the amount of work that we have to sift through. But majority of the work, as you can tell, probably are not that great, And that's why the formulas come into effect. Because it's easier to work. You can't, poverty porn was not invented. It was a trend. It was a formula. It's not that people, it's not a program purposely. It was organically formed based because of what the programmers were choosing. It's not because Asia makes poverty porn. Like people in our region, we know we make so many comedies, we make so many action films, drama films. We have all kinds of social political films. But why do Europe know some parts of Asian cinema as poverty porn? Oslo cinema, like, why is this a cliche? Why is everything a pecan copycat? No. Asian films have traditionally been, and the way we experience time is traditionally different from the West. And the way we talk about folklore is different from the way the West has talked about Hence, our experience of time is different because of how narratives pass down, and so how we film is different. Like you cannot just say that I saw Love, Diaz, and Pika, so I understand why it's slow cinema. And hence now you do a slow film. Oh, are you inspired by Pika? Every time a European journalist asks me, how? So it's not understanding also what origin things come from. Simplifying things to check boxes. That's why I'm a bit worried about. But I feel it is not gonna happen. I feel it is already happened. But I wouldn't.
So what's your?
Dare to say which festivals I would just say that.
So what's your?
No.
Yeah.
No, you go.
What would you say?
I would just say that I hope that Asian filmmakers at least trust Asian programmers and Asian festivals more, and not think that just Europe is like. Of course, there's Cannes, Berlin, and Venice, but there are a lot of good Asian festivals also that you can discover some secret gems.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the big gems last year was Taman Taman, like a new Taiwanese collective group. And I was talking to a few filmmakers the other day, and it was a film that actually Lisa saw in Taipei Documentary Festival, like a very small festival, but it was a big discovery. And Grace Song, another filmmaker, was saying that how that was one of her favorite films last year. And I was thinking, the impact that a good Asian programmer has to really tell you what to watch, what is the star of tomorrow, who we should elevate, and telling Europe, hey Europe, you could be more prestigious, but you don't have monopoly over knowledge of our region. I think it's up to the filmmakers to also empower the festivals to do that. And I think now working in a festival, I advocate it even more because I think the struggle is real. You talk to filmmakers and actors and everything. If even a B European festival invite them, they're like super happy. If Asian festival invite them, they're like, how much you want to pay me? How do I get business flight from my assistant to? Can I like? Oh, it's very true. It's real. They will never ask this of a big festival. Actually, there's a double standard for our own. We almost criticize our own ability to organize a good festival and to give prestige to our own. Maybe we deserve it. Maybe the programmers have been disappointing. I don't know. I mean, to me, I've never been really disappointed by an Asian festival that I've been to. Like premiering in Tokyo and Busan have been great for the films that I've
I think the experience of the festival, like whether it's Tokyo or Busan or any other festival that's not the A-list, if you are actually there in person, right, the quality of the experience there is very good. But I think it's just that having that European film label, right, whether it's Venice, Cannes or whatever,
that's why labels are so important to people.
But the thing is, this is human nature.
It's like, hey, where you go to? Oh, you study in RI. Oh,
exactly.
But I think it is human nature, right? It's inevitable, right?
It's true. I mean, I'm also guilty, right? I have declared 1 hour ago that I only submit my films first. I mean, obviously, that label is important. But I think ultimately, what I can say is that I know several programmers in Busan, Filmex, Tokyo, like, who really talk to you about film, and they really are intense. They are serious. They support Asian cinema so much, but they're like, oh, sorry, no Busan, no Tokyo. I'm gonna pick my Rotterdam. You say Rotterdam at all? Just why can't you just do both? And I think there's still a stigma that there are some festivals better than others. And I think it takes our own community to lift our own community up, right?
Yeah. But I thought it was very interesting, when you were talking about making Nicole's film and how San Sebastian is a stepping stone festival. If you look at someone like Hamaguchi, his career, I think his first 2 films or something like literally went nowhere, and then he made Happy Hour, right, which premiered at Locarno. Amazing film, right? But then it was only after the subsequent films that premiered at this A-Fest at Cannes, then, with his success after that, then, like you said, you examine the entire body of work.
Yeah, you can say that it attributed to a few things. Firstly, that at time, Carlo Chatrian and Mark Harrison were in Locarno, and they were really churning out this. Penny Blues was rejected by Cannes as well. Naturally, it was in Locarno, right?
Yeah.
New directors that they were sort of, and that space was perfect for it. And you can see that, okay, there was this Berlin Forum that was edgy, going to Expander. They were like doing live installations. They were doing films with no dialogue. They were doing films that were more could be curated in that sense with experiences. And then there was Wavelengths, which was in North America, that was going with the more like experiment with form, with material. They were going with film material as a and more theoretical, very, very like very intellectual, academic, but interpretation, but still very well programmed by writers and critics with a very clear point of view, and they understood the global cinema perspective very well. And you can see that there was these steps, and at the same time, documentary filmmaking was moving to this hybrid model. Like more and more films were. So there was this period of time whereby this kind of film was doing like quite well, like quite successful, getting more and more into like bigger selections. But that sort of changed when the festival dynamic changed, and suddenly even as producers we are like lost. Oh, I made a Locarno type film, but the current Locarno is a bit different. It's a bit more genre, a bit, contemporary. They're going for like high octave and maybe still some of the like indie inventiveness like Nelson's film, but mostly like still quite Mavericky films. And then Berlin changed his perspective because now the Encounters Forum became a bit more into that, even more extreme into the experiential curatorial realm. So we sort of consume and read about films very differently now because of the different selection and placements. It was a conversation I had with another critic who was working at the Vienna Festival and was also a film critic, and she was just lamenting how when the dynamics changed, certain things become less relevant. Like Forum became less relevant, and Forum was a section that counted official selection. But Encounters came and took up that space, for example. But now Encounters was fighting with main competition, and people were saying that, actually, it's really like giving none of them attention because the journalists now have to spread their lenses very, very, very widely. But at the same time, you reminisce about, but Encounters is exactly what Mark and Carlo is great at. They are just that discoverers of the most radical and innovative thinkers. But as what is life, art should change with life, and life changes all the time. So I can't feel bad about it. I guess it's just the way things will progress.
Yeah. So how would you advise a filmmaker, right? Because to make a film from script stage all the way to exhibition stage, it takes anywhere from 3 to 5 years or maybe longer. And during that time, trends change, festivals, agendas can change. How would you advise a filmmaker who is like staring at a blank page now, like to think about?
Actually, there's two different approaches.
Strategizing. Yeah.
Yeah. The first approach is if you're a young filmmaker, right? I think there's no point to change for the world. In some ways, you are crafting that peephole for people to look through you. So because you don't yet have a peephole, you're digging your own hole. You are creating your own viewpoint. That cannot wobble. You can't hop from viewpoint to viewpoint. You need to understand what's your viewpoint. And if you're a natural comedian, make comedies. If you're naturally, intense, make dramas. Like, I'm just giving very general point, but go with your natural gut. Like you cannot change who you are. People who try to change who they are, it can be told like authenticity. Anyone can. People who love films know whether the maker was authentic. So you can't change that. So for the first film or second film, there's no real point to think about trends. But when you want to upgrade, when you want to step up, when you want to understand that you want to become more commercially viable or keep a more clear identity, then you cannot be making films 3 to 5 years. You see, you have to start to think about, okay, how am I going to be sustainable, or how am I going to be effective to penetrate the market I want to penetrate in, be it festival or be it commercial. That's when you have to be a bit strategic. That's when the producer and you have to sort of think about things on a deeper level, and that goes into things like audience design from early stage, understanding how to work with distributor at early stage, getting your film probably pre-sold or green lit, or with someone who could distribute it later on at an earlier stage. This requires you to be a bit more strategic, to be a bit more market savvy. Sometimes they might say that actually this idea is not good now. You have other ideas, and don't feel that if you're at the second level, don't feel that you're stuck. But just go to the next idea, because timing is as everyone knows, timing is everything. Sometimes the right film comes at the wrong time, it still becomes the wrong film. So someone hoping to level up, a filmmaker trying to get bigger budget, find more money, producer who have more resources and find bigger partners. The producer probably knows like, hey, when I go to the market, some people are asking for certain kind of films. If you don't hit those criteria, I may not raise as much money as I could, for example, if you were the independent. It's not to change your perspective, but it's more like to fit the right strategy to your project and to your career growth. In some ways, you must, as a director, it still must be personal, but be open to explore that. Maybe not your first choice idea may not be your producer's first choice idea if you're not looking at a first or second film. But from my experience, like when it's a first or second film, I usually just go with the director's idea because they are still trying to carve that viewpoint. And as a producer, I don't want to adjust that. I don't want to recalibrate their viewpoint and then I'm just pandering them to a market and the market will find out very quickly that it's insincere. Whereas if someone is telling me, hey, I want to take the next step, I want to go further, then it's like, hey, let's discuss. There's a strategy here that we can implement, help us achieve it better and faster. Then maybe the market knowledge is very helpful.
Why haven't you been interested in producing more commercial films? Even in the commercial arena, directors can have point of views.
I think in Singapore, it's quite specific. There's only one kind of commercial film in Singapore, whereas in the global context, there are more. So I understood not very early, but very recently, that if I wanted to make commercial films, it has to be in the big market territories. Then actually have the most chance to actually make commercials that I would actually like, right? This could be like, States, UK, China, India. Resources are there for you. I mean, it's like Three Idiots is a great commercial film. Indian commercial film. Or like Red Cliff. I love Red Cliff. I don't know if...
I love Red Cliff as well.
Right? I mean...
So why haven't you produced those kind of films?
The problem is that at a level in my career, like the last 10 years, I could not. Because I was not at that level. I cannot manage that kind of production. But that's also partly why I think I took up this festival job. Is because I wanted to prove to myself that I could manage bigger teams, that I could handle business decisions and artistic decisions in tandem, that I also understood what audience comes to purchase tickets for, that I also understood marketing better, that I know how to set plans in a 12-month gap. In a house world, right? Yeah, you said 3 to 5 years. I can work with you I can plan things over 5 years. That's quite a relaxing, meditative pace. In a festival and in a commercial film, you can't. The moment you believe in something, you drop, you go. You don't have time to doubt yourself. You have to really just hit the milestones, get your draft out, pre-production out, and because time is money. If you make a film like over the course of 1 year, most likely you're making Mission Impossible or Avengers. That costs millions and millions and millions, like 7, 8, probably 9 figures, right? But if you're making a film whereby you want to minimize costs, maximize ROI, whatever, then actually to have a very efficient way of working is important. So my objective was to really understand how to work on a shorter window runway and to manage bigger teams. But I think sooner or later I will definitely go and try. It's just that it's not now. I don't feel I'm ready now to do it.
Right. All right, Jeremy. We can go for another few hours, but Jonathan needs to run. Hopefully, we can do a part 2 if you are up for it.
Yeah, next time lah.
And okay. So because we haven't talked about GFF, which is actually the main point of this podcast.
No, I'm happy my producer identity comes first. Actually, I don't see myself as a festival GM. Like, I'm happy that I have a job, I get opportunities, but deep down in my heart, I would rather be known as a creator, as one who makes stuff, So, I think I'm quite happy talking about things I talked about today. I'm sorry to edit this down.
No worries, no problem.
So hopefully we can do part 2 in the near future. But in the meantime, right, how we usually end an episode is with a quick, like a rapid fire round. So we just ask a question and you give us you give us the answer that immediately comes to mind.
Okay.
So I'll go first, and John, you then we just alternate.
Sure,
So,
sure.
Jeremy, what's your guilty pleasure film? A film that you'd be embarrassed that people know that you watch.
My first film, Jurassic Park. I love Jurassic Park.
That's a great film.
I love it. It's a spectacle. The first entry into a magical screen.
Okay. What's your favorite Singapore film? And you can say Yellow Bird if you want.
I won't say Yellow
No, you
Bird.
cannot say Yellow Bird. Yeah.
I would say Earth by Ho Sun Yen, only because I've experienced it on many levels, and each of them more spiritual than the other. And knowing how Sun Yen made it makes it even more special.
All right. What's your favorite non-Singaporean Asian film and filmmaker? Can be different.
I would say the same, mainly because it was also my first big impact. It was when I was working on Edward Young's retrospective. And it was I think that one for me was life-changing. I just never understood how simplicity could be so profound until I saw and that shapes my thinking a lot.
And your favorite Asian filmmaker is Edward Young.
I would say Edward Young ties with Lee Chang Dong, and recently Hamaguchi. The cut.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, next.
What's your favorite film festival? Other than SG?
The one I have the most fun is Berlin, but the one at Disneyland for my soul is Cannes. It's just irreplaceable. Yeah.
Okay. Who is your favorite film critic?
Oh, I don't know that many film critics. I mean, as a person, it would be Clarence Sui, mainly because he's been writing about my films for a long time, and I've always trusted him with interviewing my directors when I need a press kit done. And I like how he's an Asian point of view when it comes to watching films. I mean, he's not the most expert writer, but he's really a heartful writer. He really writes
right.
personal experience. He tries to get to the bottom of a social topic. But in terms of intellect, I really respect Mark Parenson. I think every time he opens his mouth, it's like Bible verses. I'm just learning a lot about his perception and film history and
right.
different point of views that I never came from.
Okay, what's your favorite TV series?
Recently, Severance. Not recently, I saw it I feel like a while ago. But recently I saw this Japanese anime called Mononoke, whereby there's this very colorful medicine man, and the editing in this film is just amazing. Animation and the colors. And there's this, I think it's from the 90s, I believe. But I just recently watched it on Netflix because I had a trip to Japan and I was watching it.
Right.
That was very
Okay.
Your favorite horror film?
Wow, I know this one is The Vanishing. I did a horror thesis in school because I was supposed to write a horror script. What I liked about Vanishing was that it goes down to the human, a human emotion. Understand how someone and that's so scary at the same time. The horror is not on the screen. The horror is just totally in your mind. Why does this man want to know how his kid died? And worst of all, he wants to go through it the same way. And it's that alone was terrifying.
John, if I can ask the next one, right? Because you advised me to sit in art galleries, I want to ask, what's your favorite art gallery in Singapore and in Paris?
My favorite one in Paris is the Perotan. It was the first one I went whereby architecturally and spatially it was very big. And the first show I saw that was, I think, a Soto exhibition. And it was very visually exciting. There was installation. There was not only artworks that was installation, but there was also a physical one where we can walk through a Soto work. His work is both textural but visual. It also is architectural. And it reflects a lot about the space. And the Perotan in Paris is an open, free gallery with a very good bookstore. Although I also liked a lot of the stuff that was at the Vuitton Foundation, and sometimes the Gagosian. Singapore, my favorite gallery is Faust, mainly because I like a lot of the artists that are there, and I work with a lot of them. Gray Chen, John Klang, Lavender Chang, and then we did documentaries also of Grace and Win Lin, and so getting to know these artists so much on a deeper level makes me more intimate with them. And so I guess for inspiration, that's where I go to.
Nice.
Okay. What is the worst advice you ever got?
What's advice? I probably forgot about it. I mean, I wouldn't say that's worse advice, but people have definitely told me to change things that are against the director's will. And if I think on hindsight, those were bad advice. The first person who told me this was Deepak Rania, because I was telling him, hey, like the producers Norwegian, the French, were telling us to do stuff. And because these were like quite big companies, like the French producer was a pretty big company, I was like, hey, should we consider it? Because, we have grants, we have like distribution, it's secure. And Deepak told me, hey, Jeremy, I wish people would say, that's what the director wants. That's why it should be that way. Not that's what the producer and the distributor wants, and that's why it should be that way. And it really woke me up. I was like, I took pride so much in myself to be a producer for the director, and the director to tell me that, can you think about me? Like, what do I want? That's more important. And I realized that, cannot compromise, So in the end, got a wake-up call from one of my directors. So there was more like, I was giving bad advice, and I got scolded for it. And I think that was when I had to be told to like remind myself, okay, why do I do things like the way that I do them, the people that I do them with.
Which film was this?
The Sky Is Mine. But in the end, it was called Puja Sir, which was in Venice Horizonte last year.
Nice. All right, last question. What's your brutal but honest advice for aspiring film producers?
I think there's no shortcut. That's the advice. If you think there's a shortcut, there probably isn't. Because fame can be achieved quite easily, right? You have a few successes, you get known. But respect is very tough to earn. And I feel like that has to come from like it's a time building process. And I think that's what producers should try to do. It's not about that your work is art house or commercial, because you can do respectable commercial work and people want to work with you and people want to hire you at big companies and people trust you with big projects, etc. So it's really about knowing what is good and what's not. And people can really respect you for that, and that's where your value lies, because that's when directors really want to work with you, and they know that with you steering the business side of the ship, they can never go wrong, because you have given them a good leadership position to guide them in, and the whole crew in that position, that pathway.
Yeah, with that, we conclude the end of this episode. Yeah, it's been a really long episode, but I think this is one of my favorite recordings so far. I think because you shared a lot of hard. What was Lee Kuan Yew's phrase? Hard truths.
Hard truths.
Hard truths to keep Singapore film industry going, or the art house industry going.
We'll see. Hope for the best.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for your time and your data.
To be talking to you guys. I kind of feel like I missed time so much.
Yeah. This will absolutely be a 2-part episode. Yeah.
Feeling tired.
Yeah. So if I don't see you for this year, I think at least we'll meet during SGFF end of the year.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Looking forward to that. All right. Thanks, Jeremy.